lot of people go through life doing things badly. Racing's important to men who do it well. When you're racing, it's life. Anything that happens before or after, it's just waiting.
Matt Williams got a brilliant start from the third row of the grid.
He's gone, he's hit him, he's straight off at the chase.
And a half-second lead. Oh, with the sizzling car in the background.
He has it. Oh, he's round on the last lap.
There's a massive accident.
Next to the inside, what a move, what a move.
A very good evening to all of you, wherever you happen to be tuning in around the globe, or whether you're watching this stream live, whether you're watching this back at a later date, or whether you've picked this stream up at some point after we've actually gone to air a couple of weeks from now. Welcome to the broadcast, and it's time for some Automobilista Australia AMSL's Super 2 series for 2019. Ran very successfully last year alongside the Supercars series as well, but only the Super 2s will be running this particular year. The ASC guys taking over, running a very good product in the Automobilista Supercars Championship. We're at round one for Adelaide. My name is Steve Devries, aka Nether. You guys would probably be aware that I run a couple of the other streams for some of the other AMSL's series and also race in ARW. And joining me in commentary tonight, he's actually giving up his drive in the Super 2 series to give me a bit of company in the box, is Ben Rhodes. G'day, Ben.
Hey, Stairs. Sorry. Oh, my God. Solid start. Sorry. I'm in the habit of supercars. Sorry, I'll start by saying that I've come from Automobilista Supercars Championship commentary for rare round one, so I am used to Adelaide, but sorry. Hello, Nether. Yes, I'm a little filthy to not be in the car, but that said, I was picking off concrete walls in the entirety of my 1-hour practice session, so it's probably for the best that I'm in the box instead.
Well, you had one job and you blew it. Thank you very much. So you have the next 2 and a bit hours to redeem yourself. So just be careful, please.
I will be. I'll do my very best.
All right. Sorry. Apologies to Stairs. Stairs does do a fantastic job with commentary. He's over looking after the Automobilista Supercars Championship and doing a great job, as he does with all the streams that he's done for ARW and for AMSLs over the course of time as well. He's a fantastic commentator and just as great a bloke in real real life as well. So, sorry about that, Stairs. You got an unexpected mention there. So, over very, very quickly, we'll take a look at the season overview for what lies ahead. So, here is the lay of the land. We've got 8 feature rounds at one race, and there are roughly 175 k's distance each, but however the distance will be reviewed after the opening night's race tonight, which is a feature race distance. We've got 6 sprint rounds with a 2 race times 60 kilometre distance, and they'll be dotted throughout the course of the season, and 1 endurance round, which is a 300 kilometre race around Bathurst. So got 15 rounds total across the season. We're going to be following the live Supercars / Super 2 series. So every Thursday night after there's been a Supercars and Super 2 or Super 2 event, there will be a race for Super 2 in AMS Oz. The Supercars point scoring system is in effect, so it's a maximum 300 points per round. So if it's a sprint race format, that's a maximum 150 points per race. For the feature rounds, it is a 300 point haul for the winner for one race. And it goes down accordingly, so there's points paying all the way down to 26th place. So as long as you finish, you'll score some points. We do have multiple driver classes, so at the moment they're classed as Pro-Am and Pro, and you'll be awarded points as per your overall finishing position. So a little bit different to the AMS Oz GT3 Championship that runs on Sunday nights, where it's 25 points for a win per class, regardless of where you finish. In this case, if you are the first man home in Pro, you get 300 points. If you are the first man home in Pro-Am and you finish second on the road, you'll get the points that pays for second place. You won't get the 300 points as per the first place finisher. It's a little bit different. And as you can see down there, we will be reviewing the distance for the feature race round after tonight's race. So 175 k's is the distance. There will be a few little other bits and pieces that we will talk about during the night. But looking rather good series ahead across the 15 rounds. So before we get into the drivers, let's have a look at the calendar, because that gives you an idea of the breakdown. There it is. So we start there on March the 14th, that is today, for Adelaide. for the feature race round. You can see there's a couple of sprint races dotted, some familiar circuits in there. A couple of substitute circuits are in there for some tracks that may or may not exist yet for the Automobilista Sims. So down there on August the 29th, in lieu of, I believe that one being the Bend Motorsport Park, we've got Calder Park Raceway, so that's not the oval, that is the road circuit, that's down there. In lieu of Gold Coast, after what happened last year, on October 31st, we'll be running Sydney Motorsport Park. And in lieu of not having a Newcastle Street Circuit, November 28th, we will be running Oran Park Raceway. So you can see there a good mixture of sprint races and feature races, just depending on the type of circuit. So it will be a very, very hotly contested series, Ben.
It will, yeah. It's going to be hopefully as action-packed as the real Super 2 round is, full Super 2 season is, and yeah, I'm so keen to be a part of it. Unfortunately, starting around late, but this is my rookie season, and I'm just happy to get some time in the car on the track at all. So, yeah, this is going to be some good fun.
It certainly will be. We go back and have a look at the drivers, and if you've paid attention to some of the AMS Oz races before, you'll see some familiar names start to pop up in what is a very Holden-dominated field. So you can see there Brenton Foley, Phil Boak, Lee Sanford, Will Devonish, Cam Rutledge, Gary Neville, Brennan Ross, Matt Williams. Those guys very, very active in the AMS Oz community. Brenton Foley carrying the number 1 as he is the reigning Super 2 champion from last year in the PBF race engineering car. A couple of new names in there as well that we haven't seen before. Now I will point out that the lists that you're seeing at the moment are the lists as of last night for those that had signed up. So not everybody's going to be able to make it to every race, but this is who we have. There are a couple of guest cars available as well. And if we go over the page to page number 2, a few other names there, a couple popping up from the iRacing world. One there I recognise, JP Courier, there he is in the number 88, normally runs a 888 in iRacing for JP Simshed, quite an active poster on the Australian sim racing community. So hopefully him and a couple of those other iRacing guys can pop in and take it up to some of the stalwarts of the AMS Oz community that have been around for a while. Now,
exactly, yeah. So I was going to say it'd be good to have some challenges for some of the long-term AMS Oz drivers, and also, you know, we're happy to. I mean, as per usual, I was happy to get some newbies in to keep us rookies entertained.
Yes, absolutely. Now on to tonight's race, the 175-kilometre sprint. So it's the Adelaide Street Circuit. So there you can see all the stats you need to know. It's a 55-lap race, so we go just past the 175k distance. It's actually 177. We've got 6 corners to the left, 8 to the right for 14 total. And a couple of points there. So the good news about this circuit is there's always plenty of passing zones. So if you get the jobs done into turn 1, down into turn 4, you know, if you're game enough to have a go down into turn 9 and the final hairpin, there are plenty of opportunities to pass. But as with the good, there's always the bad, and here it's no exception. The treacherous turn number 8, which has claimed so many victims over the course of its life, and with that goes the return of a very high probability of a safety car at some point during this race. We've seen it time and time again. No, it doesn't necessarily take 2 to tango around here. The walls are very, very close, and if you clout them, you are very likely going to be the cause of a safety car.
Exactly. Yeah, turn eight's going to be a menace for any car. To be completely honest, I think I got turn 8 maybe once right. I got it right maybe once or twice in the hour of practice I did. It's a tricky corner, and it's a concrete. I swear there's magnets implanted in the outside wall because it just sucks you in. And we're lucky, at least in my practice, that my damage wasn't set terribly high that it would actually affect me too bad. But you're throwing in hard enough here, and yeah, you could cause some real issues for your car.
You certainly could. Well, practice session is just about winding up for the night, and we'll be getting into a qualifying session rather shortly. So we'll go over there and we'll have a bit of a look as to what's going on, because it's gone awfully quiet in my headset. So we will disappear over and see what has been going on. And at the top of the time sheets, it's actually, surprise, surprise, here he is in the garage, Brenton Foley, the reigning Super 2 champion. He's done a 118.5, which is very, very similar to what time he did in the offline practice session, and good to see there's quite a number of drivers actually very, very close in the times. You can see on your graphic there, top 3 separated by less than 3/10, and there's quite a gaggle of cars that are only separated by a half a second as well. So hopefully there'll be some good racing tonight.
Exactly, yeah. Top 5 separated by a second, and we can see a 2-second gap all the way back to 11th, which, considering the varied amount of drivers we had show up on the entry list, has actually evened out quite nicely. We do see, swinging through the list as well, we've got some guys haven't quite set times yet. We've actually just had Philip Boak just jump in as well, who is teammate to Brendan Foley at PBF Advanced Engineering. He'll probably be up the top, and unfortunately, there he is. He's just jumped in. He actually didn't do over time, so he's sitting in 4th. So 2 PBF cars in the top 5, which is good news for me.
Yeah, it certainly is good to see Phil Boak back having a run as well. He's been in and out for a little while, but he's managing to find some time to get some seat time in that car, and a last-minute inclusion to a couple of guys just getting into the server just right on the cusp of the practice session going 0, which does lock you out for qualifying. Now, speaking of qualifying, drum roll, we have a little bit of a different format for qualifying tonight. This was a very last-minute decision. It is what's called a 2-shot qualifying. So you get 4 laps. It's in private mode. You have an out lap, 2 flying laps, and then an in lap. So it'll be a little bit tricky for us to keep tabs on what exactly is going on. And the drivers have only got 10 minutes to do it. So the only thing with private mode is that we won't see all the cars on track together. We will be flicking back and forth to see what is going on as drivers cross the lines and set their best laps. But it'll be a bit of a challenge for these guys, not being used to, actually probably being used to going around the circuit with cars around them and getting a slipstream. I mean, the slipstream is only not a huge impact here, but it'll be a bit, I wouldn't say unsettling or unnerving, because it's basically just going to be you, the car, and the track, and nobody else around you, Ben.
Exactly. From where we're sitting, our live timing services are going to become incredibly useful in picking up the stories as such before they happen. Previous experience now with some of the qualifying has picked me up that, this is going to be incredibly useful. But, it's going to be different for some guys used to, especially guys that have been around a long time. They are used to qualifying around other cars or doing a single lap, sort of one-shot qualifying session. So this is halfway between the two. You actually get some time to get out and get some proper heat in the tyres without sort of rushing your warm-up. And you can actually throw out a lap and then continue that speed from that lap into another, hopefully better lap. And you don't have all the cars to deal with at the same time as well. So it'll be good to see how this plays out.
It will be. There's a couple of drivers that did go out before the red light was extinguished and went green, and Sid was one of those guys, and actually just gives the wall a decent rub down there at turn number 8 in the Nick Percat liveried car. So that's one of the guest cars that's available. So the first man that actually went out when the green light came on was Mitchell Hathaway, so we'll cycle back to him as the drivers all start to come out, and he'll give us our first representative lap time. So let's see if we can pick him up. There he is. So he's coming out of turn number 9 now, and we'll stay with him and see what sort of lines he takes and what sort of lap time he can present. So he was a little bit higher up the order compared to most of the other guys. He was 3rd overall out of the practice session. In actual fact, he's aborted that lap, so I'm going to need to find somebody else take a lap.
I'm just going to flick through. I think now she's going to find you. The problem is a lot of cars just coming around. I think JP Curie is the next one on an out lap.
Yep, so JP Curie down to the final corner now. Looking on high. He'll be running the 14 Slade livery until his new livery comes in effect at round 3. So here he goes, down into turn 1 with the centre chicane. Just clip on the inside, outside, and then now to the left. It's a very nice line, and he's now onto Wakefield Street. Down to turn number 4, the right-hander, the first of the corners in the staircase. Just missing the apex slightly, didn't run it all the way out. You don't want to shift up unnecessarily between some of these corners because it just kills your momentum and defeats the purpose. You just let it run out to the rev limiter if you get close. He's going for a rather conservative lap for the moment. Over the curbs, down through turn 7. Used the curb nicely, got it beautifully straight. And now the run down Bartels Road towards turn number 8, the treacherous turn 8, as they call it. You do not want to take any curb on the inside here. And that's a nice line, but it's very conservative, not really high commitment, just at least going to try for a banker lap here. And hard on the anchors for turn number 9. Just went a little bit too deep there. Gets back on track now around the racecourse on the left-hand side of the track, as the circuit continues to bend left and left and left again. Through turn 14, or the old turn 14, I should say. It's now turn 12. The right-hander at 15, and now hard on the anchors for turn 14, the final turn. Not using all of the road there, but rather conservative lap time. In actual fact, it's quite a slow lap as well. So he's actually going to set a 1 minute, about a 1 minute 30 odd there. And yeah, it is a 29.8. So Billy's the man who's got the top time at the moment. Steve Burko jumps up into second. Billy with a 120.1. As we flick around to see Ethan Howard's one of the next men who will cross the line in the PBF Pro-Am cars. He's your teammate actually, Ben. So
he is, yeah. It's it is actually the baseline that was actually thrown up early in the design process. And then we ran to the blue car, but you're going to see how he goes.
He's gone deep at the final turn though, so that's really paid to his lap. So he comes up 8th, but he's got to have one more crack at it here. Actually, Grant English, the man on top now, goes up to the top with a 1 minute 19.6, but still plenty of times to be set. The guys have got 10 minutes to do it. Now, I've just seen Mitchell Hathaway gone to the checkered flag, so obviously he's done too many laps and he will not be able to take part any further, so he'll have to start from rear. This is a man who's running in both series at the moment. This will be one that sort of starts to seriously threaten the times, is Will Devonish. He's done a 22.7 to the first sector in the Holden VF Commodore. Now coming down to turn 8, actually paired with Rob Crisdale, or Ozrob, in the ASC Championship. High level of commitment through turn 8.
Yeah, that was pushing 2 k's an hour through the corner. That's really about as fast as you're going to be going. Supercars drivers going about that fast through that corner, and they've actually got a real threatening wall to deal with on the outside, where ours is just a virtual concrete wall. But that was well committed. Yeah, he runs the ZB in the supercars, and I suppose replicating was actually possible. He's in the VF for the Super 2. But that was a very high attack lap, and straight to see him go quite high up the time order.
Well, he does a 19.1, goes to the top by a half a second, so that's a very, very good lap time. A very beautifully controlled lap time. He's still got another one on the burn to go. And not all the drivers have set their times yet, so we've got 20 drivers available in the server, and still about a quarter of the field at least yet to set a time. And the reigning champ is still in the pit lane waiting himself to go. Actual fact, I think he might be on the circuit at the moment, Brenton Foley. And no, he's still in the pits, and his teammates still in the pits as well. So leaving it till the last minute. They were working rather hard on setup.
I think there's possibly a strategy play, probably waiting for just the maximum amount of tarmac to put down. And a lot of the rookies will probably want to get out early to make sure they do have a lap, so they've got a better chance of qualifying with sort of their ilk of driver speed, and they're going to have less traffic as a result.
Certainly. Will Devonish up to the second sector split, a 10th up on his own time, so going to go mighty close to dipping under the 1 minute 19 barrier here. And this will be his final flying lap. A little bit of a lock up into the final turn, but manages to get it turned and heads to the line, and he does an 18.7, so he found some good time and lays down the benchmarker for the rest of the field to chase. Grant English is done.
That puts him. Puts him a second over Grant English in the GEM car in second.
He does. Cracker's done. Cam Rutledge done. We're just looking through the field to see who has still got some lap time on the board. Aussie's just finished his lap, vaults up into 10th place. Most of the field, surprisingly, are done. Now, Foley's out on his out lap, and he's coming up through the staircase at the moment, so he's up at the top end of the circuit sort of now, and got 2 minutes 50 on the clock to get 2 laps in, so should be able to get it done. Brennan Ross, making a name for himself in GT world at the moment, is on his first flying lap through turn 8. You can hear the audio as he lifted, using all of the road. and a little bit of a wiggle. Manages to get it turned in for turn 9. Ooh, got strung up on the curb there just a little bit. Looks like that car's a little bit of a handful there.
Yeah, I'd say so. That was looking quite twitchy, and I was talking with Brendan Foley about this earlier in the week.
Look at him! Look at it!
Twitchy car is a wee.
That thing was
Yeah,
squirming under brakes all the way to turn number 14, right on the edge of limit. And in actual fact, he was given a track violation for that time, so his lap won't count. It was around the minute 20 mark, so he's got to go again.
I don't think he's afraid to. I think he just nicked the outside wall there on the way through turn 3. So he is he's going as hard as that.
Oh, and that's the end of him.
Gone.
And that's the end of him. So you push, and you've got a loose, twitchy race car, and that was begging for a bad result. And out of turn number 5, I think it was, no, sorry, turn 4, he comes a cropper. So unfortunately for Brendan Ross, he's going to be toward the rear end of the field. Still should set a lap time, though, because at least he'll give him some sort of a starting position over the guys that haven't set a great lap time. Here's Phil Boak. His first flying lap down to turn 8 with a minute 15 on the clock. Oh, right out to the wall. Gave it a little bit of a brush as he came out of turn number 8. And a little bit deep again under brakes. A few people going deep down there at turn number 9, but he's got 2/10 on Will Devenish's time at the moment. So whatever he's doing, even though he went deep, he made it count. He looks set to go to provisional pole with 50 seconds on the clock, and he'll still get one more bite at it as well.
Yeah, coming around the final corner now. Yeah, there's a little bit of dent in that door from that run to turn 8, but I don't think it hasn't been too bad. That banker lap is going to set.
He lost time.
1:18.8.
He lost time, so he lost time out of that third sector. So he's got to go again. Where is Brenton Foley in all of this? Here he comes to the line. This is a poor lap from Foley's standards at 21.9. He has to go again. He's got 26 seconds on the clock to set a better lap time. The only two drivers that can improve their position, Foley and Boak, and they've left it till the last minute to do it. Everybody else is in the garage. So, actually, where is Phil Boak? There he is. So, not far off his PB, but really ringing the car over the top of the curbs at turn number 7.
Brendan Foley's just gone up 1/10 of his PB through the first sector. He was getting it sideways off the exit curb through, I think it was through the staircase. But I think he's embracing a speedway in him, and he's climbing the speed that way.
And
but,
Boak's thrown it away.
There.
Boak's thrown it away at turn 9, so he will not improve his position. There's no way he can make up 7/10 in this, actually nearly a second in the final sector. So we now turn back to Brenton Foley, who sits in 12th, and he's up. And he's up by 2/10 on Devenish's time. Really wringing the neck of it here. Right out to the wall. He was battling to get it stopped there at turn number 10 or 11, I think that was there. So through 13, it's pulling up straight. A little bit of an inside lock. Missed the apex, but it shouldn't hurt him too much. But he's just got to straighten this run to the line. Uses all the exit curb. What is the time going to be? It's an 18.7.
Oh.
It's an 18.7. He misses out on pole by 1500ths of a second.
Yeah, do you know the funny thing as well? That 15 is actually Devenish's race number. So bit of poetic timing, or there's a word for that which I cannot remember. I'm a master of words this evening, but yeah, that's bloody close. 0.015 from the top 2, and yeah, that's nuts.
That is a very, very close qualifying session between the top 3. Sadly, we didn't get to see Mitchell Hathaway set a decent time because he was right up there in the practice session as well. So he's going to have to start rear of the grid at the moment. It'll be interesting to see what he can manage. So the drivers that have put down their lap times, it's not their best lap times actually. The best time was Foley with an 18.5 in practice, so an 18.7 in qualifying trim is not too bad from Will Devenish. But there's still some speed in those cars. Most of the drivers obviously running longer distance runs through practice and then only coming in for some qualifying session type laps at the end of practice. But a lot of them probably wouldn't have been expecting the 10-minute short blast with only 4 laps available to them.
Yeah, a couple of drivers being thrown out by the short time to work with. So yeah, it's during the race we don't have a chance to sort it out. It is only one race, so there's not like a possibility to sort of sort of reset and redeem yourself in that first race to then go hard again the second race from where you think or where you should have run up in qualifying. But a couple of big drivers that did fall a long way down the order because of little errors there. That actually both of the Bradjone racing cars ended up lining up each other 16th, 17th. A couple of big names. Brendan Ross as well in 18th. Lowest qualifier for FCR, I think. Otherwise, the other two are FCR drivers in the top 15. A couple of surprises out of qualifying, but Adelaide will do that to you. So it'll be interesting to see who can redeem themselves and who potentially might slip further down during the race.
Yeah, certainly right. It's going to be an interesting 55 laps ahead to see who comes out on top, and also pit strategy is going to play a big factor in this as well.
Yeah, exactly. Pit stop strategy and so, this is where it'll obviously favour those who have done a lot of sim racing stuff before. They will have practiced pit stops. My full extent of knowledge of pit stops, and I'm happy that I've got a little more time to practice them as well, was the GT3 race they did at Monza. And I kept locking the brakes and sliding 20 metres past the pit stops. So for those that haven't got pit stops, that'll be a challenge. And the strategy will come into play as well about when to pit. And like we saw in the ASC, safety cars will potentially become a thing here. We have got a more evenly balanced from top to toe grid, so it might be less of an issue, but safety cars will still come into play, and it's going to be then who takes the gamble on a safety car versus potentially pitting under a green flag lap.
Yeah, you're certainly right. The safety car will dictate quite a lot of strategy. It'll also dictate quite quickly to those who can, or actually gravitate quite well to those that can think on their feet fast and do the math that needs to be done and make sure they get in at precisely the right time, and that they can actually get to the checkered flag from the time they get home. I believe they can do it on one stop. It looks like the fuel burn rate is somewhere just fractionally north of about 5 litres per lap. Obviously, the fuel burn has been turned up to ×2 for the series to make sure that A, for the feature races, they force the pit stops, but also B, just to give that little bit of extra spice to get people thinking about what sort of strategy they have to employ when it comes to fuel. Tyres are left at normal, so there should be plenty of grip available, and obviously in the sprint races that's going to be fantastic because the tyre drop-off won't be so bad. But in the feature races, it will give you a little bit of something to think about if you think you can actually make it without changing tyres. It'll be a bit of a gamble. I would probably suspect a number of drivers will take the opportunity to take tyres. I'd be very, very curious and intrigued to see if anybody can make it without actually putting tyres on the car.
Yeah, you've got to sort of commit to that strategy pretty early to run through and avoid pit stops and hope there's a late safety car or something that will put you up the front, and then you have a couple of laps left to defend whatever position you end up in. But I wouldn't be surprised to see potentially some of the drivers who, as I said earlier, should be further up. Courier, Ross, and there's a couple other drivers there that we normally see a bit further up. I wouldn't be surprised if some of them were electing to take a risk like that to try and fully maximize their points at the end of this race. But that's going to be a gamble, because if it doesn't play off for you, you put yourself back to the position you qualified in, or worse, you might be right in the back of the grid because you'll be running around at the end with tyres that cannot achieve any grip outside of just staying on the track, and you could be running, high 1 minute, low 2 minute lap times if your tyres are really that buggered. So it's going to be a strategy play to manage the tyres early, but also try and build up pace, and that you've really got to be concentrated on that, because if you get caught in racing, you'll use up your tyres a lot quicker than you want to, and then you're stuffed. So
that's right.
If you're going for it, you commit to it early, but otherwise, a lot of the front runners I think will probably play it safe and will run a pit stop and swap tyres.
Yeah, that's right. You've got to think about the long game in these feature races as well. So you can't afford to get tied up in a battle for runs for too long or too many laps, because then you're just following in dirty air, you're abusing your tyres trying to get the pass done, and it might be even better just to hang back, and play the strategy card, whether the overcut or the undercut, depending on what you think can work for you, and react to what the other drivers are doing around you, rather than try and force a gap that isn't there and make a mistake and put yourself in a fence or something, because it's going to be very unforgiving around here.
Yeah, you really don't want to put yourself in the wall here. You've got the opportunity to, if it's my damage, to come back and go to the pits, but unless you've a good gap at the front and then you go and do it, you're going to put yourself, if not last and a lap down. And then there's the race has length to it, but there's unless you're really mastering the strategy play and whatever, there's very little chance of recovering that lap. So yeah, it's better to play it safe than necessarily go for the fastest lap here. There is not a lot of runoff. It's similar in nature to Sandown, but it's a street circuit, so there's extra variables thrown in there. And yeah, other circuits we've got, you can afford to push the limit. This one, if you really don't, even if you know what you're doing, you really got to think twice before you do it, because there is a lot on the table that you could lose if you throw in a little too hard into one of these corners.
No, you're absolutely right. There's going to be an attritional race, no doubt. We hope it doesn't come to that, but we suspect that it very well might. Well, the driver's briefing is taking place at the moment, so while the driver's briefing is going on, I'd just like to take a little bit of a moment away from the track, just to try and, I wouldn't say mend a few fences, but just to clear up a little bit of a long-standing sort of an issue. You've heard us a couple of times mention the ASC, or the Automobilista Supercars Championship, which has been getting run on Monday night. The first races was on Monday night, and Kurt Stenberg, Colin Warwick, and all the guys over there that have put that on have done a sensational job to get that up and running in such a short space of time. Much the same as the AMS Oz team have spent the better part of the last 12 months to start from scratch and build something that is turned into a massive undertaking and group that runs several races a week. The decision was made at the start of the year, when the guys were going to run that ASC championship, that we wouldn't run a supercars season, because we didn't want to be seen to overstepping our bounds, or we didn't want to have two sort of competing products. And now we've wound up with the ASC for the guys who have come across from iRacing, guys that are highly competitive, and a number of the guys from AMS Oz have jumped in over there and tried their hand and done quite well. And also we've got some guys that have obviously running both series as well. We don't want to be seen as having a competing product. It's certainly not intentional to have two products that run similar sort of race types and compete against one of each other. We don't want to be seen as one being better than the other. We'd like to think that from an AMS Oz point of view, we are doing a good thing for the racing community in general, and that's that we've got guys that just want to race. Some guys want to be able to compete with the guys that are at the highest level and benchmark themselves against them and strive to be better. And by all means, if that's the kind of driver you are and what you want to do, we certainly encourage you to go and contact the guys over at the Automobilista Supercars Championship, because that is the benchmark as far as the driving standards are concerned. Whereas over here at AMS Oz with the Super2s, a lot of the guys tend to want to compete with people that are in their own sort of skill set. They don't want to worry about having to be, back markers and get out of the way of guys that are, sensationally quick. And there's quite a lot of guys, the Warren brothers and Stenberg and all those guys that are over at ASC are blindingly quick, and they've been doing it for a long time, and they're brilliantly quick and very, very good at it. The only thing I can simply say is we just have got guys, drivers that want to race, and people that want to do a good job at calling those races. So ourselves, Stairs, who's been doing it for a while as well, Madbird, Bagsy, all the guys that have been doing commentary across all the series, we certainly don't bear in any ill will towards the guys at ASC. As an admin of AMS Oz, or a sort of a semi-admin of AMS Oz, I would like to put my hand up and say I wish you guys nothing but the best over there, and hoping that we can continue to have a high level of respect for each other and work together on things moving forward. Certainly don't bear any ill will to any of the guys over there, especially after the things that happened last year. We'd like to bury the hatchet and not worry about any of that, and let's just get on with providing some really good high quality racing and high quality broadcast of that racing to everybody.
Exactly. Yeah, I've done now working commentary for both, and my decision to sign up and run in the Super 2 series was purely based on my pace or lack thereof, and that was the only deciding factor. And I will continue to support ASC and Super 2 equally. It's great to have two supercar championships set up for different levels of drivers so that they can compete in an environment that isn't scary for those who are slow and isn't almost sort of throttling in a way, if that's quite the right word, for those who are fast then have to deal with a lot of lap traffic or vice versa. So we've managed to achieve a bit of a split based on driver pace, which is good because it allows those who are quick to race with quick guys, those who aren't so quick and need the chance to practice, like myself, to race with those who are of a similar ilk of speed. And yeah, we're going to do better for having the two series, and yeah, we continue to support both of them.
Absolutely. Well, the siren you heard in the background means that it's just about time for us to go racing, and it is a twilight race, so a 55 lap twilight endurance race, so headlights may be required a little bit later on as the sun dives down. And you'd see there from on high as we look down to turn 14, the cars are slowly starting to wind up on the grid. They've got about 30 seconds or so remaining, and a beautiful field of what's now 19 cars. We seem to have lost one driver. We're just trying to work out who that is. And actually, looks like actually Brenton Foley hasn't made it back in. So something's happened to Brenton Foley.
I believe there's another driver having issues with getting in the session. He might be out trying to help him up, get him into the session.
Well, unfortunately for Foley, that means that he's going to miss the start. So not 100% sure what's happened there. So disaster for the reigning Super 2 champion. He doesn't look like he'll be taking to the grid. But in any case, we need to get through the grid rather quickly. So Will Devonish is on the pole for Willett Race Engineering. And moving up in the order then, it was Foley who was P2. It's now Phil Boak will start alongside in P2. So Pera Holden's on the front row. Grant English for the first of the Falcons in the 024 Gem 2019 car. Followed by Cracker for Cracker Team Racing in the Penrite car. Cam Rutledge for CRE Motorsport. The electrician occupies P5. But actually, hang on a second. We've lost a.
Yeah,
I think
we are restarting. I've just got I've got Brenton on my Steam list, and I just got a notification pop up on my screen that he's just started playing AMS. So I'm guessing something crashed for his end or something like that. There's words. I'm not understanding what that quite means. Something to do with Foley, but Foley a disconnect. So I'm guessing the game just had a moment, and he's out. But because especially because of someone his stature, is one of the two guys that we can thank for putting together this series. They've elected to restart the race so that he can join in the fun.
Well, you're right. It's this series is set up and run by Brenton Foley and Phil Boak. They've put a fair bit of work into this series, and we hope that Foley's able to get himself back in. And we're looking to the list, and he hasn't managed to reappear just yet. So I think we'll be restarting a couple of times to get him in. I think they actually have to move them back to warm up, I believe, for Foley to get back in.
Well, we're sort of floating through probably a couple of successive restarts until we do get him going. I wanted to bring attention, as I noticed in the warm-up, just flicking through the cars, Steve Burko's Top Gear Racing Falcon, which by itself is a bit of a fun double over name. I've just noticed he's got a BMW grille on his Falcon.
Okay, yeah, I did actually notice that. He's put some sort of little...
the double kidney grille.
He has. Very much like a BMW. I'm actually just getting word through that the server's actually dropping quite a few people unexpectedly, so we are going to restart and get a few things organised. So I believe that'll be being communicated to the drivers, so hence it's moved back into a warm-up mode while they sort everything out. So we'll just very quickly step away for a few seconds and we'll wait for all that to be done. And we're just having a very eagle-eyed viewer pointing out a Larry bar on Will Devonish's VF Commodore. So I'll get you have a bit of a sticky beak at that, Ben. That's one of our commentary counterparts from real life has actually very eagle-eye observed. He's we call Hans the walking encyclopedia of all things motor racing. So he's he's very keen very observant at the moment. So you might want to check that out if you can get a sticky beak at Will Devenish's car from some of the onboards.
Yeah, I saw that earlier. I was actually playing around with cockpit settings myself before I jumped in the car, and what that is you can actually choose yourself if you feel so inclined to have a Larry bar in your cockpit as part of your cockpit settings. So it might just be something where, for example, Will might use the Larry bar or post on the Larry bar as like a frame of reference. Like, for example, if you're in your road car, you'll use. If you line your dash up with the curb, you're pretty close to the curb. You might do something similar with the Larry bar, or he just prefers the classic supercar look. But yeah, that's something you can choose independently. You can do it yourself whether you want to or not. I went for not a Larry bar because I have enough trouble seeing where I'm going as it is. That's a choice that Will's made, and I mean, you'd almost say that it's helped him because that might be one of the reasons. Maybe it's given some extra structural rigidity in the car or something. We don't know. But very different from Hans there, and good to see him keeping an eye on this sort of stuff. But there's plenty of times that I've been in a supercars event with him, and what he's done is we've gone and talked to Super2 engineers, and it's mainly calls to memory Super2 engineer. I think we were talking with one of the guys at Image Racing, and he was asking questions, Hans, to the point where the engineer had to say, "All right, I need to go find someone who knows the answer to your question." So he can out-engineer an engineer, and he's great in commentary, but he really needs to find himself. I don't know. He needs to become a permanent contributor to the motorsport section of Wikipedia with that noggin of his.
Well, speaking of that noggin of his, he'll hopefully be around and be commentating on a couple of the Super 2 races in the near future. So we certainly look forward to him coming and occupying the commentary box alongside myself, and if you're out there racing, I'm certainly be looking forward to extracting whatever information I can from his brain on the subject of all things motorsport. He's a great contributor and a great commentator, and he's full of knowledge. So watch this space, ladies and gentlemen. You'll get a very, very big rundown on all things that you didn't know about motorsport when Hans is in the box.
Yeah, plenty of questions you've asked, and probably some you haven't thought to ask. Hans will be able to answer pretty much all of them. But we do lose the slight knowledge of myself as a driver. You more than make up for it in the technical knowledge that Hans will have. And you've driven not as supercars, but you have driven plenty of times before, so you are more than well equipped to provide the driver knowledge, and with Hans' pride and engineering knowledge, the commentary is just going to get better and better as we go along.
Certainly will. Well, siren has gone off again, so we hopefully are not far away from another restart this time, or a proper race start. So we'll dive back over and we'll wait to see everybody gridding up. So because of Brent and Foley having to jump back in, they've had to reset the grid and just make sure that's all good to go. So it looks like everything is in order. We've got a full grid of 20 cars for 20 people in the service, so hopefully it stays that way. And we thank you for everyone for your patience. Just a few teething issues in this very, very first Super 2 race for 2019. The first obviously being run and hosted by a different number of guys in the AMS Oz community. Just waiting for one or two cars to occupy the grid, and we are away on the warm-up lap. So let's hit it again, top to bottom. Will Devenish, Willett Race Engineering, number 15. He is on the pole. Foley now takes his place alongside him in the PBF Race Engineering. Phil Boak occupies P3 in the other PBF Race Engineering Commodore. Grant English the first of the Fords, followed by Cracker and Cam Rutledge on row number 3. Here's Steve Burko. There's the Ford, the front crew you were talking about with the BMW front end. Starbucks Coffee Top Gear racing car. Ricky Slick, do not be fooled, that is Matt Williams. So in the FCR Motorsport Team Scratch, you can see the Williams on the window there. Billy, so I believe that's one of the news members to the AMS Oz community, Billy Douglas-Salonga. Dwayne Davies rounds out the top 10 for the grid in the Marcus Ambrose look-alike number 55 car. Then we get down to Lee Sanford in the beautifully presented Click Studios Commodore. Termo in a Castrol racing car with the livery that's a bit funky there at the moment. Gary Neville for FCR P13. Brownie, who's a teammate of Cracker, out of P14. And now we start getting into some of the drivers that are a bit out of place. Aussie, who's in one of the guest cars, the Kelly Racing Jack Daniels car. Sid, again, he is also a guest for this particular round, running one of the BJR cars. JP Courier in his temporary Freightliner racing car until you get his livery up and running. Brendan Ross, he's way out of position down the back in P18. Had a very loose race car in the 444. Ethan Howard's P19, and rounding out your 10, who's a man that was right at the top end of practice, is Mitchell Hathaway, and he has got a lot of ground to make up, but he's certainly got the pace to do it. So it'll be interesting to see some of these guys from the back bend charge their way through to the front.
Absolutely, yeah. As I was saying earlier, a couple of guys that are really out of position with this, and I mean, I've seen plenty of places made up in just getting a good start at Adelaide and just making them run down into that first chicane and through there into the first of the staircase section. So anyone who's been practicing their starts will hopefully benefit hugely, especially if they're from the back of the grid.
All right, well, they're all lined up. Couple just getting the last minute into the grid box. So here we go. Let's get set. 55 laps to open the Super 2 season in Adelaide. And we're away, and it's a fairly even start from the front too. Will Devonish just bogged down a little bit. We've actually got a yellow flag flashing there. It looks like it might have a full course caution already, so this could be... I'm not sure what the full course caution's already come out if it happens to be the case, but very, very highly odd.
I think Courier stalled it on the grid.
Yeah, he has. You're absolutely right. There he is. He's stuck on the grid, so he's somehow stalled it, and we're under safety car to begin with. So not a very, very good start to this race, but it's pretty much going to be stations as they were, as nobody really seemed to get a really huge jump on anybody, but it's a fairly even start by the front two. And very much as soon as the lights went out, the safety car was called. So we'll wait to see if Courier can get that car running. And yes, he has managed to get that car running. Yeah. So very, very lucky boy, just stalling it there on the grid. Obviously new to the Automobilista Australia group, and probably also fairly new to Automobilista Racing Simulator, I would imagine, as well. So probably didn't have any of the automatic ignition on, and or being able to install it on the start line. So he'll catch up to the back of the field. So he's still in this race. In actual fact, Mitchell Hathaway jumped up to 17th as a result of that car coming out, or stalling on the grid, and the safety car coming out. And our safety car is out on track at the moment. So hopefully not for very long. Bit of an odd way for the safety car to make its debut here in Adelaide at the Super 2. We certainly weren't expecting that to happen.
Absolutely, yeah, that was an odd one. I've got to commend the guys at the back, Mitchell Hathaway, Sid, Ethan Howard, any of the guys that were sitting behind JP at that start, especially whoever it was who was sitting right behind him on the grid, for managing to avoid him, because it wouldn't have been a case if he started and then stopped. He just didn't go. And given the guys at the back, even those who were pretty inexperienced with starts, still would have been having a fair click when they got to him. So for them all to avoid him is commendable as well, especially with where their with sort of where their pace and experience is at. And yeah, Courier will be making up both of the field, but yeah, it's possible he didn't have mapped a either auto ignition or just a easily findable ignition switch. What's possibly also thrown him is the clutch in Automobilista, which I'm not actually fully versed on what it's like in other sims, but in AMS it's more of a button clutch rather than you don't actually have the full transitional pedal travel. He might have been relying on that, and he's probably going to dump the clutch expecting it to blend in. But what it's just done is just dump the clutch immediately, and without enough revs, it's just clonked down on the line. So that's possibly what's throwing him out there.
Very possible.
But yeah, good to see that all the guys at the back did manage to avoid him. There's no damage as far as I can see. Just having a look through the cars, they all look in the same nick that they left the grid in, and yeah. Good start from Hathaway. I think he benefited partly from that and got a good jump as well. He got up to 17th, so that's 3 spots in technically 100 metres.
Yeah, he's
bad job.
He's done very well there, and you're right. I think Courier was out of either P17 or 18, and Mitchell Hathaway was out of dead last. So he wasn't exactly behind him, but there would have been avoiding action being taken by the man who was directly behind JP Courier at the time that happened, and probably would have put him into Mitchell's path. So they did a very, very good job to avoid the stalled Freightliner Commodore, and they are all still running in this race. Now this will be an interesting thought for these drivers as well, because to get a safety car so early, it'll start rejigging their strategy a little bit too. They'll be thinking, well, we're going to fuel conservation mode. Some of them will have more than likely started with a full tank of fuel. Some people might be trying to split it down the middle. So this then forces a recalculation of where they are planning to pit. Are they still going to stop at the half distance mark? Can they push it an extra lap because there's not as much wear on the tyres? They'll have an extra lap or two of fuel maybe, depending on how quickly and how efficiently they can save fuel. But judging by the weaving going on at the moment, it wouldn't surprise me that maybe the safety car might be coming in this lap with a bit of luck.
Yeah, I was about to say the safety car. It has been confirmed at the end of the last that we are going green flag next lap. But if my readouts are correct, every car but one is indicating to pit. Whether that's just a placeholder and they maybe put that in right at the start of the safety car, and now they realise it's going green flag, they're going to drop it off. But according to my screens, everyone but Philip Boak has intentions to hit. So whether they ran low off the start or what they're doing, whether they're just trying to get some extra fuel in the tank now to not have to do it later, I don't know. But if that's true, that's going to put Phil Boak into the lead with probably like a 20-second gap back to whoever it comes out in second. But I'm hoping that's not correct. That's not correct data in this case, because that's going to be a very messy pit lane with 19 cars in at once.
Yeah, you don't want to be coming in with 19 cars in the lane. Well, safety car into the pit lane off of the second to last corner. So Will Devenish has control of the field when the green flag drops again. It'll be his prerogative to go now. Probably a little bit different to GT, and it is. So he's away and gaps Brenton Foley quite quickly as well. So not a bad restart from Will Devenish. He gets out in front and gets into some clean air. Foley in hot pursuit. Boak under pressure from Grant English there as well. And Foley was all sorts of committed through turn numbers 2 and 3. And he ranges onto the back of Will Devenish like a rocket. Boak manages to hold off the charging Grant English. Cracker still holds down P5. Rutledge is there in 6th. Matt Williams has made up a spot to P7. Steve Burko down to 8th. And the rest of the field starting to sort themselves out. Mitchell Hathaway has picked up another couple of spots. So he's up from the back to P15 and starting to pick them off rather quickly. So in a couple of laps' time, we'll probably be inside the top 10 at this particular rate. But down to the treacherous turn number 8. And it's single file through here. You need to be committed nice and early to get your pass done there. And at the moment, it's just going to be hold station for Brenton Foley on Will Devenish. But he's not letting Will Devenish get away. In actual fact, they're all lighting it up. They're all lighting it up for turn 9. And that now puts Foley under pressure from his teammate as well and gives Devenish just a little bit of breathing space. So the teammates don't want to be getting into contact with each other too early. And they'll just like, settle down, you two. We don't want to see a collision so early. But they're getting very close for comfort.
I was going to try and recap some of what happened in the last lap, but it actually just didn't stop, and there was no point for me to jump in there. But Grant English, he actually did get past Phil Boak for third, but he had to basically use the entirety of the runoff through the turn 1, 2, 3 chicane to do it. So he had to back off on the next straight round and the run in turn 4, so he didn't clean an illegal pass. But yeah, that was a good safety car restart. There was action without it being another safety car, and safety cars love to cause safety cars. We haven't had that happen, and that's a good thing in itself. But yeah, Mitch Hathaway went up to the 13th. He passed Aussie a lap ago, and he's passed Gary Neville recently. He's actually fighting currently with Billy. Oh, we had a car round. Gary Neville and Billy actually have collided for, I think, out of 14 and 15 they were initially.
Yep, they are. There's Billy around the corner. So it's just a local yellow for the moment. Let's see if we can pick up what precisely happened there. And, actually, Billy went around all of his own doing, actually. And that was off of, looks like, turn 5. And he did the right thing to get out of the way and then couldn't be avoided by the number 61. So just the 61 got a little bit too aggressive there through turn 5 and collided with a stationary car. So no real damage done. We stay under green. But that puts Billy right down the back of the field as Devonish sets quickest lap. Brendan Ross is right off the pace. So
yeah, there was a unsafe rejoin in a way. He was already on the track, but it was unsafe rejoin from Billy in a way that he didn't wait for the last car to come through. He actually hit the gas to spin it back around while Brendan Ross was still coming. And Brendan Ross actually did make slight contact with the rear passenger door of Billy's ZB.
Yeah.
But I don't think that's done too much damage to the car. There was some very aggressive light flashing, which replaces the horn in a race car. So I think we get idea. Actually, someone's in the pits. Gary Neville's in the pits.
Yep,
so I think he did actually take some damage in that.
Yeah, he has. He's missing a bonnet. So too, Billy is missing a bonnet as well. So they'll be in for damage repairs and obviously also for, I guess, fuel and tyres as well. So and Steve Burko's in as well. So Steve Burko doesn't look like he had any damage, but maybe getting himself out of the battle pack that's been going on. Just want to run in some clean air. So that'll be an interesting strategy to see how he goes. Actually, back to Brendan Ross as we cycle through the field. That car looking extremely loose, as loose as it was in qualifying as well. So he's probably not having a very good time under that helmet at the moment.
No, I was actually just having a look at Burko's car. It doesn't look quite right. The bonnet's missing, but I'm not seeing any detail for the engine to indicate the bonnet is missing. But I think there is some damage to the front of his car as well. So I'm not sure where he picked that up. The bumpers all look fine, so I'm not sure where he picked that up, but he was running quite comfortably. I think he qualified in the top 10, so he's got a long way to go from here. Well,
speaking of a long way to go, we're only 7 laps into this 55-lap race, and plenty of the drivers are hanging it on the ragged edge and really lighting up the rears of some of these turns. Somewhere along the line of watching everything, Phil Boak has managed to get past his teammate Foley, and he's 1.7 seconds behind Will Devonish at the moment. Foley actually coming under attack from Grant English in the Falcon. And then Cracker's still back there in 5. Matt Williams, or Ricky Slick as he's written in here, has moved up to P6 now. So Matt Williams always has a number of drivers rubbing the turn 8 wall.
Oh, no. Sorry, I think we're going into full safety there. That was a whole incident that I just watched. It was Hathaway who'd rejoined to the track but wasn't hitting the blue flags through the staircase, and I can't remember who that was. I think it was Brownie who got a little impatient with him, and he got sideways out of the last corner of the staircase, and he just sent him around. But that in turn sent Brownie around, who was then collected by, I think, one of the bright blue cars. I think that's Rutledge. I think he might have Sanford he got connected with. Sanford's still running, and Hathaway's actually showing up in 10th.
Yeah, showing 10th at the moment.
He's showing 10th,
let's cycle to him because here he is just in pursuit of Lee Sanford at the moment. So we're staying green for the moment, so maybe just a local yellow, so no flashing yellow, but Mitchell Hathaway's made up 10 places, and that last time around you see there was a 28.0, so part of that little indiscretion there. But so far, despite the fact we've got 2 drivers a lap down in Gary Neville and Billy, as Termo's got an issue. So something's happened to... What's happened to Termo there? He's either hit the wall or something's happened because he's very slow. He was 2 positions a bit further up.
There's damage to the front left corner of his Altima, so I think it's hit the wall. He's actually locking up brakes.
Well, here it is. Oh, yeah, he had a big moment. He had a massive moment off of turn 3. Walloped the wall hard on the run to turn 4. So, yeah, he'll be limping that car back to the pits, I would assume.
He is. He's locking up brakes every corner, and it looks like there might be a bit of steering geometry damage as well, so a bit of suspension damage possible for him as well.
Yeah, you can
but he's going to get that back to the pits and try and make the most out of what would be the left of this race for him. But yeah, not a good one.
Well, here we go. Just watching a move here. A move nearly pulled by Aussie down into turn number 9. So turn number 9 on JP Curio, who's recovered quite well to 10th. So some of these guys at the back starting to move their way forward. Brendan Ross picks up another spot. He's up to P14. Matt Williams up there in P6. He's always been one of a perennial gaggle of position getters in a race. As we work lap number 9 for the race leaders at the moment. So still a long way to go. Predicted we get about 75 odd minutes with stops in that included. Probably going to be a little bit longer than that now, given we spent the first couple of laps under an unexpected safety car. But out in front, still Will Devonish leads. Boak, Foley, very, very close. Grand English hasn't given a hope there. Aussie's gone very, very deep there at turn number 4. Manages to get back on track, so now loses touch with Courier. Cracker, Matt Williams, Cam Rutledge, Mitchell Hathaway now up to P8. Lee Sanford, JP Courier rounds out your top 10. And a couple of drivers have already stopped with Steve Burko.
That was nearly a moment that would be a fly on wall debrief moment. Ethan Howard was just ahead of fellow teammates, actually bosses as such, Brenton Foley and Phil Boak, and got a little squirreling. Actually locked a brake into the last corner and luckily swung left rather than swinging right. If he'd swung right, yeah, the debrief would be quite intense of potentially breaking one, if not both of your lead team's cars. But he's out of the way. Yeah, we're already seeing cars being lapped, which is to be expected. We are running a subset class for rookies, and I will be in that group, I expect, next week, getting lapped quite early in this race. But Brownie, so far, the last of the most recent of the guys to be getting lapped, the last 5 cars so far have gone a lap down. Part of that is due to having to take pit stops and having damage as well.
Yeah, so 3 cars having come in for damage for stops, and a couple have gone for early pit stops as well, as we've got a local yellow flag in the 3rd sector at the moment. Somewhere along the line, Foley has now surrendered 3rd place to Grand English, so that Falcon is just tracking along quite nicely at the moment. And here we go. So here's the yellow car, the yellow car of is that JP? That's not JP.
No, that's the other one.
That's Sid. So Sid getting out of the way, actually coming into the pit lane. So a few drivers making a few little indiscretions and getting themselves in trouble, having to stop for damage repairs, and some of them pitting to get onto a different strategy. So out of the ones that are on the different strategy, Steve Burko in P14 is the first of the true stoppers who's come in rather early. Didn't look like he had very much damage on the car, but he's very close to going a lap down. Oh, Grand English is gone! Grand English has gone off of turn 4, so he looked like he may have had a little bit of a clip, but he's going to have to spin that car rather quickly. He's done a rather good job, actually, to get that car turned around very, very quickly before Cracker arrives. So his teammate arrives on the scene. We'll pick this up on the run down to turn number 4. Now, he didn't get served, but no, he just overcommitted and dropped the right on the left rear on the grass, and hopefully not too much damage.
Yeah, hopefully. I just caught the end of that. That was a very well executed flick turn to get it back into pace. I ended up getting in the habit of practicing those, and at times I sent it too far into a corner, but. Yeah, it's lightly damaged, but it doesn't look like it's going to be too bad. He might wait. We're going to see, actually, as the laps go on, whether the damage is actually quite severe from internally. But I think he's going to push around with the damage he has and fix it at his planned stop. Yeah,
I think you're probably right if there is any damage to repair. It doesn't look like there's very much on the front of that car. It might be just superficial damage. It's not locking any brakes or anything, except you locked a brake there into the final turn, the hairpin. But the car looks like it's tracking quite straight. No real signs of any trouble. And his lap time, that time around with the incident, was a 30.8, so probably not too bad. As one of the other cars, I think that's Gary Neville with a drive-through penalty, just coming out of the pits, was in the back of shot as we watched Grand English go by. So your top 3 now, Devonish, Boak and Foley, with Grand English having dropped out of P3, Cracker to P4, Matt Williams back behind Grand English in P6, Cam Rutledge is tracking along quite nicely. He's lost 1 position since the drop of the green flag. He's got Mitchell Hathaway slowly closing in on him. He's at P8 and he's been racking up some rather good times in that Boost Mobile number 99 Commodore. Lee Sanford up to P number 9, and Brendan Ross now finds himself in the top 10. I think JP Courier may have come in for a stop, or he's had an incident somewhere, because he was up at P10. Oh, we got it's Ethan Howard is around. So Ethan Howard's around at the final corner, and actually stranded. He's technically on the racing line here, but it's a single car area and everybody's managing to get around, and that's rather dangerous. So we didn't see what happened there. We just caught the fact that he was stationary, and I don't know what we do in this situation here. He needs to get himself turned around, but it's going to be quite difficult given there's a constant stream of cars running around the circuit at the moment. But we will resume with our race leader for the time being. Devonish is just stretching his lead out to 3.5 seconds. The PBF pair are still running line astern here, probably not helping each other's cause. They just need to put their heads down and see if they can catch Will, because otherwise this race is going to get away from them. 13 laps in, working 14.
Oh, Cracker's gone deep, but I think was that turn 4.
Yeah, he certainly has, and that's allowed Matt Williams and Cam Rutledge through, and Mitchell Hathaway. So Cracker making a bit of a mistake. Well, we've actually just caught the back end of it here, so we haven't. We'll see if we can rewind it a little bit, but we haven't got much of a thing to go with. So where did he do it? He looks like he's locked up here into turn number 4, or in actual fact, it looks like he's had a bit of a moment too. So he's come off of the turn there. Oh, had a big tank slapper, whacked the wall as well. So that will be the reason for that. In actual fact, going deep at turn number 9 as well. In actual fact, and then causing the spin. His teammate spins as well, so that's not a particularly good sign. As Foley sets the quickest lap of the 19.4.
Foley very nearly went backwards out of turn 3. They got a massive wiggle going on and was lucky to catch it. That was, I swear, it was going around twice there. He was sliding and then caught it and then nearly went the other way and then caught it. But excellent car control there, and that probably shows why he's setting laps like he is. But he is currently right up on the back of Phil Boak, so it's potential that he's set up to work better once the tyres have been bedded in and once he's starting to get a bit lower on the weight in the rear of the fuel. As opposed to Philip Boak, who's running more of a getaway quick at the start of the race setup, because
well, here goes Foley.
He's diving him now.
He does. He dives down the inside. We're just trying to pick it up there, so he gets the job done nicely at turn number 9. The Ketterville terrorist hairpin. Like I say, it's terrorist, but I normally comes out when I pronounce it as terrorist. It does terrorise a few people, that particular corner. So that puts Boak back down to P3. Foley back into P2, and now Foley really needs to set his sights on Devonish, who's got lap traffic here. So he's passing Steve Burko, who was the first man to come in and stop, and there are cars in the pit lane at the moment that are going a lap down. So Courier's just gone a lap down as well as Burko, so the field up to P13 has been lapped, but a few people making mistakes, a few people coming in for early stops. Devonish manages to get through the traffic quite nicely, and now Foley's caught up in the traffic behind it's Courier there, I believe, and Boat has to go around the outside. Thankfully there's a bit of runoff there. He's able to get the job done, and Grant English is the next man to tackle that particular traffic. Matt Williams, we cut to him at precisely, I would say for him, the wrong moment, because he really got out of shape off of turn 4, and if you didn't quite see what was going on there, watch very, very closely. We'll bring it forward a bit so you can see it. Didn't use all the racing line at turn number 4, and just back end caught it. Around he went. He surrenders a few places, and he'll flick spin the car and get going again.
That's one of the few times that the commentator's curse has actually beaten us to it.
Well, we were just in the process of flicking to him, and then the next minute he clattered the wall. So he's gone from P5 to P8. Doesn't look like there's too much damage. Car seems all right, and turns through turn 8 without a problem. So very lucky boy there, Matt Williams. Set a blistering lap to qualify on pole for the GT race a week and a half ago at Monza. Unfortunately had technical gremlins and dropped out of the race almost just as it was ready to get going. So he'll look to get a good result as well this coming week at Circuit de la Sarthe in France for the 2-hour endurance race on Sunday night. Be sure to tune in for that.
So the big beneficiary of some of these offs we've seen in the top 10 is Mitchell Hathaway is now up to 5th. He's got a bit of a gap back to Grant English in 4th, but he's got.
Oh, who's that's gone around?
That's another FCR car.
It's another FCR car. We're trying to cycle
Neville.
Gary Neville. So he was at the
position.
very back. So we heard it, and we haven't been able to catch it. So he's had an issue at turn 4, and he's lit it up off of turn 5 as well. So that's what we heard, was the crash at turn 5. We didn't see the crash at turn 4, but a number of drivers making very, very poor mistakes this early into a race too. So I'm not sure whether it's a number of drivers are trying to get up to speed with the cars too quickly, whether they're not in sync with the cars, but it's certainly causing quite a few problems. Now, Foley's starting to cut into this gap. It's now down to under 3 seconds, so he's been setting some very, very nice times, and it's now Devonish and Foley with clear air. And you can see there, the gap is a lot closer, and it's now down to 2.4, so another half a second that Foley's managed to take out of Devonish on the first sector of this current lap.
Yeah, Phil Boak's dropped way off the back of Foley. He's now got a gap of nearly 4 seconds between the two PBF race engineering drivers. But I suspect my suspicions are true that they are running differently timed setups, and we're just running off the falling edge of Boakey's as we get into the prime time for Foley. But he's narrowed down what was, I think, also in turn a 5 second gap possibly to Will Devonish down to 1.5 seconds now, and he's still closing it.
Yeah, he's massively closing it down. It's now down to 2 seconds. And here comes Devonish is in. All right, so that's a last-minute decision. So that'll surrender the lead to Foley. And Devonish stopping. So let's see what he does. And tyres being changed as well as fuel. So our predictions a bit earlier were correct, as Foley disappears off the map there. I don't know what's happened, whether Foley's had a disconnect or something, but that can't be good because it now surrenders Boak into P1. I think Foley may have had some sort of a disconnection issue because he's not on the screen.
No, Foley's appearing my end. He's still showing up on live timing, and he's currently traversing the pit lane. He is showing up on my map. So
Nose DNF. Here we go.
Oh,
so
Foley's out.
Foley is out. So Brenton Foley, the reigning Super 2 champion from last year, unfortunately out of this race. Technical gremlins looked like they may have struck. He was having a few little issues earlier on. Thankfully, he's not hosting the server, but that will then very quickly promote everybody back up the order, and it puts Phil Boak in the lead of this race for the very first time. Looking for where Will Devonish has come out, and he's actually come out P3. Off, Boak backs it into turn number 9. A number of drivers having making quite a lot of mistakes in this opening race, so treating it like it's a sprint race rather than a longer feature race. Grant English with a drive-through penalty, so he looks like he may have come in for a stop as well because he's all the way down in P9. And the speeding in the pit lane penalty strikes for a number of drivers. So disappointment for Brenton Foley. He will not score any points in the opening round of Super 2. His boat continues to lead with 18 laps down and 26 minutes elapsed in this race. Mitchell Hathaway continues to be the big winner out of this. He's setting lap times in the 19s, so he's starting to gain time hand over fist over Phil Boak. Last time around, they were pretty evenly matched, 19.6 to a 19.7 for their best lap, and then last time around, Boak's lap was of 1 minute 21.6 to Mitchell's 19.8. So the gap will come down quite quickly. The top, Phil Boak, the leading pro runner, Mitchell Hathaway Pro-Am, but we think very quickly he'll probably end up in the pro category if he continues to perform this way. But we still have, aside from Foley, we've still got 19 runners in this race.
Yeah, that was it's the big beneficiary of all this has been Mitch Hathaway, and he's to cut it from last on the grid to second on the grid. Granted, he does have to make a pit stop, so this isn't the actual race order as if we take pit stops into consideration. Will Devonish is in the lead, and I believe it will take more than 24 seconds for...
Here we go, Ben. Sorry to cut you off here, because down the inside of Cam Rutledge, Cracker's having a look here. Cam Rutledge gives him some space. Brendan Ross, very, very cheeky, tries to go with him as well. Makes contact with the CRE Motorsport VF Commodore and manages to get out of it and redress position. So I was just looking at this battle while you were talking, because Matt Williams is starting to close in on them, and Cracker makes a very nice move down into turn number 9. In actual fact, Cam Rutledge dives into the pits, and Brendan Ross and Cracker stay out, and Matt Williams, actually, where's Matt Williams? There he is, Ricky Slick, Matt Williams, whatever you want to call him. He stays out as well. So that battle was shaping up quite nicely, and actually quite a good pass by Cracker down to turn 8. Just Brendan Ross couldn't make the opportunity stick. And we continue on our way. Dwayne Davies now moves up into P7 as a result of all the stops taking place. Rutledge is P8, Grant English 9th, so English won't be able to pass his counterpart in Cam Rutledge before he gets around to start-finish straight, and Aussie's managed to make his way into the top 10 as well. But with all these stops, it's jumbling up the order, but the one constant is Will Devenish, so he's out in P3. In actual fact, I think he's running in some relatively clean air, and he is, so we'll get a good reference as to how quick Devenish is compared to Mitchell Hathaway. Last time around, it was a 20.0 to a 20.9 for those guys, and a 20.8 for Boak, so the man on the move is Mitchell Hathaway.
Yeah, I think by the indicators I'm getting, assuming that they are actually working properly now, I believe Cracker's about to dive in this lap. Nope, sorry, he is still going another lap, so it is my end that's not playing right. But Hathaway is actually just coming to the pits, actually, in terms of talking about pit cars. He's in the pits now, and he is coming out of the pits, so on the way out up the fast lane now. He is going to drop out. He's lost a couple of spots there, but drops out in 6th with a healthy gap of about just over 8 seconds to Dwayne Davies in 7th.
Does a good job of slotting in behind the traffic as well. So he comes out in P6. He's behind Termo there and JP Courier. So they are squabbling over 13th and 14th at the moment. But they want to clear these guys rather quickly, because he knows that Boak has still got stuff. Oh, who's that around? That's Courier, is it? I believe it looks like it might be around, or it's one of them.
Yeah, it was Courier. Yeah, Courier in the number 14 Freightliner racing car. Yeah, he was lucky to avoid connecting with another car there, but he's going to wait a little bit because he's going to wait for a free space in traffic. He should probably go now I think he's having problems finding gears. We did notice that he stalled the car in off the line. I think he's had that issue again. I think by the look of his revs, there's a lack of noise in the car. He's actually, he's DNF'd.
Well, that's another retirement out. So he did have a few little issues there, JP Courier. So probably not up to speed yet with the transition from iRacing to Automobilista. So hopefully we'll get himself sorted for the next round coming up next week, actually. The Albert Park sprint race format next week. Mitchell Hathaway continues on his way. He'll set a good lap time for his first out lap, seeing as he's cleared the traffic. Actually a pretty respectable lap time of 26.8.
Yeah, he's already back up to 5th by virtue of Cracker pulling in the lane. He's just finished his stop. He's currently sitting 7th, but he's still traversing the lane. He's potentially going to drop. He might lose a Cam Rutledge down in turn 4. Cam Rutledge is 5 seconds back from him, but he's got speed that Cracker doesn't have. So
race
Rutledge
leader
is
in.
Right up on the back of Cracker.
Race leader
is in.
Race leader is in. He committed very, very hard to the pit lane there. He's got one of the very first pit bays as well. So Devenish now just coming through turn number 11 and 12 now, and he'll retake this lead quite comfortably, actually. But we'll see what the gap happens to be. So he's got some traffic here just in Billy Salonga until he gets through. There's Boak in the lane there, so you just saw him on the bottom of shot. So the gap will actually favour Devenish here, so he will have eked out more of a gap, and we probably would have got a track violation there for turn number 2. He was all sorts of right of the curb when he shouldn't have been. So he'll probably chalk one up there. But he holds quite a nice margin now as we watch him tackle turns 4, then 5, and then 6 up through the staircase as he has to work the lap traffic again. So just the 2 retirements. Matt Williams finally decides to pit as well. So this will be interesting to see if some of these drivers are pitting around the half distance mark are able to actually get home from here. Given there was a bit of fuel saving going on, as we've got Ethan Howard, he's on the racing line too, so that would have been a bit of a fright for those guys. In actual fact, Devenish having to get it offline gave the turn 8 wall a little light rub on the way through there as they had to negotiate the lapped runner in the PBF Pro-Am Commodore. Another lap nearly completed for Will Devonish. This will be 23, and we're over half distance.
Yeah, Brendan Ross hasn't pitted yet, and it's showing the his car was twitchy on green tyres, and it's looking very, very lively on its worn rubber. I'd hope to see Brendan in soon, unless he feels like he can make pace or make some sort of pace out of his very much lack of stability. But he's currently sitting third, but he is one of the few cars that I believe yet to pit, and based on that, Mitchell Hathaway is sitting in provisional third.
Local yellow up here at turn number 4. Who have we got? I think it's one of the
Penrite cars.
That looks like it might be. I can't tell which one's which. So it looks like it might be Cracker, I believe, that went a bit deep there at turn number 4.
That was Brownie, I believe.
There you go. So he's Brownie going deep there at turn number 4. It's the local yellow. So good. We've only had the one safety car so far. We haven't the high safety car probability. It's sort of 100% strike rate has come up, but we haven't had a safety car mid-race just yet. It's still
Both
plenty
just
of time.
given the turn 8 wall a bit of a nudge. I don't think he got the same crinkle in the door panel he had from qualifying now. I don't think it's only known to the car, but yeah, he's pushing to get some heat back in the tyres and speed back in the car. He's got an 8-second gap to make up to Devonish, which if he's running the same setup as before, which he more than likely will be, he'll be trying to get this done now, and then probably hoping for a later safety car for him to be able to make up any further advantage or hold him off from there. Speaking on the topic of DNFs, I believe we did already mention, but created DNF, but he has actually just left the server as well.
Yeah, there you go. Well, that time around, Devonish with a 20.7, Boak with a 20.3. So he did manage to clip Devonish just a little bit on that particular tour. But Mitchell Hathaway, that time around, was a 21. He had some traffic on that particular lap, but he was flying through the first 2 sectors up until he caught the lap traffic in Brownie. He's still got a little while to go, but keep your eye on this man. 30 laps remain, and anything is possible. He's demonstrated that he has got the pace to live up at the front, and he's got to start eating into that gap and eating into that gap quickly. His next target's Brendan Ross, who's pretty much a full length straightaway down Bartels Road from turn 7 to turn 8. Brendan Ross's car has been lively all race long and all practice and all qualifying as well, but it actually seems to be driving a little bit more sensibly at the moment. It's not too livid out there on the track, and that's probably the way you need to treat some of the these cars in Automobilista. You treat them like they're glass. In actual fact, Brendan Ross is in. So with 30 laps to go, he comes in for his stop. Hopefully it could be his only stop. That'll give Mitchell Hathaway clear sailing passage into the final turn and into P3, although we did drop the outside left-hand tyres onto the grass on that tour.
Brendan Ross. Brendan Ross. Sorry, he's only managed 25 laps on. If he has changed tyres on that set of tyres, so he's possibly banking on a late race safety car based on the tyre where he was achieving. He's actually I believe he's secured a track cut or something. His penalties just shown up for him as well. But he's going to be banking on a safety car for his tyres to make it to the end of that race, because it was already quite skaty after 20 odd laps, and he's got another 30 to do on a similar set. So fingers crossed that I suppose for him that his strategy plays out towards the end of this race.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if some of them can get home from here. There's not a lot of battles going on up and down the field at the moment. It all seems to have strung out and settled down quite a bit. Well, who's that in the wall? That's the AirTech car. That's one of the... let's see if we can cycle through so we can pick up who it was. That's Sid. So there you go. So that's the other BJ, I guess, car. Yeah, so he's had an issue off of turn number 4. So here he comes. And what's happened here? Yeah, he's just lit it up a little bit, got a tank slapper on, and then just run way too hot into turn number 5 and clouted the tyre barrier So we could be about to see another retirement here, and indeed we have. So Sid
Yeah.
becomes victim number 3 of the Adelaide Street Circuit.
He does. That's both of the BGI guest cars out now, which is a shame. But yeah, we've seen races with worse attrition rates. I've just seen a massive smoke cloud. So somebody's happening somewhere. No, that's Turbo. Something's happening with Turbo.
Yeah, he's
sitting in. I'm going to find him. He's coming down the back.
He's P15 here, so he's got smoke trailing from the car. So the mistake's starting to creep in. Yeah, we're just catching the back end of it here. He had some sort of issue down at turn number 4, so he's hit a wall again or something. Actually, he's got front right. He's got front right suspension damage. He's got a lot of
it's also clouded the brakes
damage
again. So much like his earlier impact, he's now got a stubbornly locking front right, which it's going to be hurting tyre temps, and it's going to turning that thing into a 50-cent piece. And
he's done the right thing here to get offline. Done the right thing here to get to the inside. Yeah. And I don't think Ethan Howard particularly wants to pass him, but he's going to have to. He's got no choice because coming up behind him is Dwayne Davies. So actually, D2 going through on the pair of them. So Turbo running both the ASC and the Super 2. So comparing himself in both categories, and unfortunately he's got quite a lot of damage there. But the important thing is get around to the pits, get it fixed, because there are still points on offer even if you are down the standings, and there's already 3 drivers that are not scoring any points tonight. So all the points you can get are worth their weight in gold at the back end of the season.
Exactly. On the topic of not scoring points, I did actually have a quick chat with Brendan Foley. It was another disconnect for him, so he's been having issues. He was initially scheduled to host this server for this race, but he was having massive issues. Took him a couple of days to try and get something working, and had to call in a couple of favours. But yeah, a couple of guys have been having some janky internet, and I think he's drawn the short straw for this race, which is unfortunate. His series is running well, but unfortunately he isn't.
Yeah, with thanks to D2, Dwayne Davies for hosting the server tonight as well, I believe. That's the favour that's been called in.
Scruff, sorry.
Oh, Scruff it is, Matt Williams, so stand corrected. Thank you, Brenton, for correcting me there, because I know we were talking earlier in the week and it was likely to be Dwayne, but Matt Williams, so I do apologise if for the wrong mistake there. It is Matt Williams hosting tonight's server.
Right, I believe we're now one each on the vocal faux pas.
Yes, well, mine was based on information that was presented earlier in the week, and yours was based on your memory reflexes.
Very true.
Well,
I think Turbo's got more damage because he's producing smoke trails again. I saw him pit, but it might have just been a spin. I think it might have just been a spin for him or something. But he's not having the best of races compared to his running ASC from memory was pretty good. So I think Adelaide didn't want to let him get away with it after he had a good race the first time and has come back to bite him the second time round.
No, you're right. So the car looks like it's all right at the moment, so we'll keep an eye on that as he goes, but at least he's got the damage repaired as Billy comes into the pits there just ahead of him. So Turmo won't gain any positions there because he's still a lap down to Billy, so only a handful of drivers still on the lead lap, and probably should go through the field as we've got working lap 30 at the moment, so it's still Will Devonish leading, but Phil Boker's continuing to cut the advantage down. It's down to less than 5 seconds now, and Phil Boke, they're the only remaining PBF Race Engineering car in the race. Mitchell Hathaway still continues to eat into the pair of them, so still continuing to set some good lap times. So at the moment it's a Holden 1-2-3 for the outright podium. Ricky Slick and Matt Williams actually makes it 4, and Brendan Ross will make it 5. So Matt Williams for FCR Motorsport round the final corner at the moment. Start lap 30. That shows to show how far away he is from the leaders. Brendan Ross not too far behind as well. Cam Rutledge makes it 6 Commodores in the top 6. He's basically where he started the race. Grant English, the first of the Fords, is down 3 positions, so after having that spin it's kind of cost him quite a number of spots. Dwayne Davies, the second of the Fords, in P8. He's up 2 places where he started. Cracker's moved down to P9, and Billy rounds out the top 10 based on all the attrition that's been going on and the pit stops to boot. And from that point in time, I think from Billy onwards, if we look at what's been happening, actually cracker downwards is everybody's been lapped. Dwayne Davies and Grant English not that far away from being lapped by the race leader either. So probably a couple of corners away. So Devonish has been setting a good pace. I'm concerned. I think that Devonish is definitely going to have to stop again. A couple of these drivers have to stop again. Some people might try and stretch it into a single stop if they can do it. Just depends on how they've been driving the car. The gentlemen that have stopped quite later in the piece, mainly around like Brendan Ross, Matt Williams, those guys have can probably get home if they drive it sensibly, but it'll be touch and go. But the likes of Devonish and Boak and Hathaway, I think, are all going to have to stop again.
Yeah, Hathaway to stop, I think, in the middle of that set, and he's been running quite high pace, which will be using his tyres, and he's probably going to stop again. Question will be, with tyres, if you are stopping with tyres again, where do you stop? Because there's no real opportune time to do it in terms of tyre use, much as there isn't with fuel use. But yeah, a couple of drivers. I reckon a lot of drivers at this point we have been going. I think. I can't actually. I think we're going nearly 30 laps without safety car, which isn't unheard of. But the longer you start to go on towards this, the better chance you have it. And we have already seen a couple of localised yellows, and all you need is something a little bigger than a localised yellow to turn it into a full course. And you'll find a lot of the lead drivers probably duck straight into the pits to top up on what they need to make it to the end, and then it will have a bit of a sprint race for the to the flag.
That's right. Well, somewhere on track, Matt Williams and Brendan Ross exchange positions because Ross is up to P4 and Matt Williams is down to P5, so probably a mistake from Matt Williams somewhere unsighted. Devonish is in, so we spoke about this. Actually, no, he's not. Devonish isn't in. He's gone. Something's happened to Will Devonish, the race leader. That gives it back to Phil Boak. Mitchell Hathaway now up to P number 2, and Devonish is out of this race. So some sort of technical gremlins again, maybe falling foul of. But what a disaster for Devonish.
That's a real odd one, yeah. For Devonish to drop out, it's almost like they're having something against the they've got something against almost the leaders or whatever, the gods of racing, because twice now we've had a leader disconnect. Brenton Foley just as he got the lead, and Devonish as he was just working on that hard, but yeah, he's out now as well, which is that hands the lead at the moment to Phil Boak, and he's got an 8-second gap to Mitch Hathaway, but Mitch Hathaway is coming.
Oh, he is coming, and coming quite quickly too. Not only that, Phil Boak, up until the point where Devonish was still leading this race, was catching him hand over fist. The gap was actually down to about 2.5 seconds before Will Devonish's untimely disconnect, and it's not the first time that Devonish has had those sorts of problems. He's had all sorts of dramas, especially the first round of the GT3 World Challenge at Barcelona. He became a victim of a disconnect issue, and a number of drivers have had that particular problem as well. So he makes it 4 retirements out of the 20. So still got a strong field going, even though a number of drivers and a number of laps down, they'll still score some points, provided they can finish the race. But the gap is coming down very, very quickly. Hathaway takes 0.6 of a second out of Phil Boak on this particular lap. Actually more than that now. It's now down to, he's actually taking about 1.3 seconds. This is really, really tense, because have these guys got to stop again, and if so, when do they come in, and how are they going to fare getting to checker flag? He can see him now, Mitchell Hathaway. There's Phil Boak at the end of the straight. There's Hathaway.
Yeah, Boakie's got a call to make, because Hathaway's pace has been consistently got better as the race has gone on, but he hasn't really had an obvious downside to his setup in the window of tyre life. Boak has seemed to be very aggressive early on those tyres and has made pace, but then he's lacked the ability to maintain and defend that pace as the race has gone on. So he's going probably, I would hope for his sake, he's kept an eye on how many laps it is before the tyres go, and he will pit that many laps before the finish, and possibly also hope for a safety car at this point, because Yeah, he's got less than 5 seconds back to Hathaway. Hathaway's on not so much better tyres, but he's got a much better handling car and is able to extract much better times out of it. So Hathaway might be, and I'm going to find some wood to touch first, he might be about to extract the very oft-seen blue moon in racing of going from last to first.
Very possible. Phil Boak's got traffic at the moment. He actually had Grant English go a bit deep at turn number 9, and he's actually managed to get past. He's getting past Lee Sanford now, and also getting past the Jack Daniels Nissan there as well, which, if I look down the list, is being driven by Aussie. So he's managed to get past the traffic without too much incident, but he has lost a lot of time. It's now down to 4 seconds almost on the button between first and second, and it's very, very rare, as you said, you see someone drive from the back to the front. I actually had done it myself back in the Formula 1 2014 days when we were running with ARW at the final round at Abu Dhabi, managing to drive from the back to the front. I think it was a field of about 13 or 14 cars and get it done, but it is extremely rare.
It's down to just over. He's down just over 3 seconds, and Boak's gone into the outside wall again at turn 8. So, yeah, I think his tyres and his setup is starting to hurt his speed and his grip and controllability. And yeah, he's dropping pace. He's also dropping off the track at points as well, which is not helping him. He needs to get to new tyres, but the problem is he's still got 20 laps up to this race, and that's exceedingly fast wear on those tyres for him to be already struggling with 20 laps left to go. He's going to be banking on a safety car and some other sort of godly act, I think, at this point, because Mitchell's still got good tyres and he's coming, and he's going to be able to continue to do that after next pit stop for longer than what Boak can. So yeah, and Mitchell's got nothing to lose. The next person on the road to him is Brendan Ross, who's nearly 44 seconds back. So he's got time, especially with his pace, to wait and actually sort of force Boak into a mistake, which, with where Boak's handling setup is at the moment, could very much be a thing. He's already kissed the outside wall at turn 8 twice. With a bit of pressure in his rear bumper, a bit of aero influence out of it, he could hit that a little harder, and we could potentially see both of the lead PBF cars out of this race.
Well, he's not the only driver that's rubbed that turn 8 wall, as he gives it another rub there. They're really, really, really pushing the limits to try and make as maximum pace as possible. They don't want to be doing that too many times, or the next thing is you're going to whack it at such the wrong angle or at such the speed that it puts you out of this race, as you said. And he'll be looking at that mirror every so often, maybe a little bit more frequently than he has been over the last sort of 20 minutes or so, because that 99 Boost Mobile Commodore is coming, and it's coming in a big way. It's getting larger and larger and larger every time he looks in that mirror. The gap at 3 seconds this time around. So what's the lap time? A 20.5 to a 19.9. So it's really getting to panic stations, I think, for Boak very, very soon, because he's going to run out of laps. He will not be able to defend very, very well with the kind of pace and the numbers that Mitchell Hathaway's putting up, and certainly putting on a show. Looking down the field as we go through, so Brendan Ross has driven away from Matt Williams and comfortably occupies P3. He's making a habit of podium visits as Billy gets himself a drive-through penalty. I believe he may have just exited the pit lane somewhere, or he's had some sort of a trouble.
He did. He exited the pit lane just behind Boak. And just
Matt Williams has gone off.
Traffic.
Matt Williams has gone off again. We missed out on what happened here, so we'll pick this up. We're just cycling through the field. We just said that Brendan Ross was in P3 and Matt Williams was 4th. What happened here? Going through the left-handers around past the racecourse. All we had just a bit of a tank slap. I got onto the grass. Doesn't look like he did too much damage. Just gave the wall a bit of a rub. So no mechanical damage, a little bit of body damage. But that's a very, very costly mistake for Matt Williams. So that actually drops him down to P5. Actually, and puts Cam Rutledge up into P4. And Dwayne Davies, the first of the Fords, now in P6. From Cracker in P7. Grant English, Steve Burko and Billy rounding out your top 10. Cracker going deep there at the final turn. So it's, as the race gets on, there's more and more and more mistakes starting to creep in. And this is what we tend to see in endurance racing as well. If you're not familiar with the endurance format and how it works, it's all about patience. And what you saw, if you were watching the broadcast for Monza a week and a half ago, there was not a lot of patience. They were fighting and squabbling like children over 4th, 5th, 6th and 7th place half the time for several laps, and we were just hoping for them to settle down and get on with it. But you don't want to be doing that for too long, especially in a long distance race, because you need to keep your consistency up. You need to be able to keep the car straight, keep it out of the walls, and you can't afford to make mistakes. That's the biggest key thing about long distance racing. Mistakes will punish you if you make them too regularly.
They will, yeah, and we've seen a couple of lead drivers so far. Hathaway is still closing up, but he almost looks like he's also reached the end of his tyre life, because he's looking slightly more squirrely than he has been. He did get a quite sideways through turn 3 that last lap, so yeah, he's starting to push him whether his tyres are not responding in the way that they should be, whether that's going to cause an issue for him. On the topic of DNFs as well, Lee Sanford also dropped out of the race in that last lap or two, so that's another one of our Commodores down. Yeah,
we did miss Lee Sanford dropping out. It looks like he completed 33 laps, so he was already a couple of laps down, but he did drop out probably in the last couple of minutes. But now the gap is down to about 1 second here as we watch everything.
We've got a car backwards. Oh, and he's back to the garage. Grant English. Spun it around. I think that was out of turn 6. I think that was on the way up to turn 7. He spun it and clapped the wall again because there was more damage to the front of that Falcon. But yeah, he's brought it back to the lane, so he's out as well.
So we're starting to lose more and more cars here. Really in the gun sight here is Phil Boak. Mitchell Hathaway had a bit of a look out of turn 8. He really committed hard, and the pressure is now on the number 015 PBF Race Engineering VF Commodore, and it's being applied by the ZB behind it of Mitchell Hathaway. It's only going to be a matter of time. He decides to bide his time. A little bit of a lock up there into the final corner. And then they've got lap traffic as well, so Hathaway's got to pick his time here and pick his spot. Maybe just better off just watching what Phil Boak does for a lap or two and then commit to it, as his teammate Billy there gets another drive-through penalty. Now Hathaway down the inside. Here he goes. Here he goes. And Boak knew it was coming and let him go, but doesn't actually, fights back. Round the outside. Hathaway on the inside. This will set Boak up for the inside of the staircase. So he's not prepared to concede defeat just yet, Phil Boak. In actual fact, he does a good job to defend there. So he let him down the inside at turn number 4 and got the switch back and held it through the staircase. But it's still going to be a hell of a fight to hang on to it here. Now there's a commitment point. Hathaway needs to tuck in and just get the line right. Here he goes. So he tucks in, tries to stay with him. Now the next opportunity is turn 9. Hathaway down the inside. Boak late on the brakes and will try and hang it round the outside and stay with him for the left-handers through turn 10. Is Hathaway too far ahead? Yes, he is. He just manages to get ahead, and that's good driving from this pair. Great driving and great allowance of space.
That battle took the best part of 3/4 of the lap, and yeah.
And Hathaway's in. Hathaway in. So no sooner he gets past. Actual fact, he's gone deep. He's gone deep and hits the wall as well. So is that going to cost him some time here? Because he's had to obviously come in and get tyres and get fuel. So he definitely couldn't make it home. And he actually has to come in just ahead of the car of Cracker as well, I believe it was, that's in the pits, or Brownie, one of the two Penrite cars that was in the pits.
That was Brownie. He's just leaving the pit lane now.
So a couple of small delays getting into the pits for Mitchell Hathaway, and if I were Phil Boak now, I'd be very seriously considering getting in. I don't think Phil can make it to the flag here. He's going to have to come in and get some rubber. You can see he's understeering horribly off some of these turns, so he needs fresh rubber, and I'd be getting in now if I was him, because not only has Hathaway made a couple of mistakes, but he'll probably have a little bit of traffic at some point as well with the pace that he's currently got.
Yeah, with the gap now, it's sitting at 30 seconds.
And here's the evidence. And here's the evidence. Sorry, Ben, to cut you off. There's the evidence. You can see that Phil Boak went way deep at turn 9. He actually followed Steve Burko in. So he's got to get in soon. Those tyres look like they're absolutely potentially gone, or he's battling just to get it stopped now. But he goes for another lap. So remains to be seen how this plays out, but I've got a funny feeling it's not going to play it in Boak's favour.
No, there's an alternate strategy of some sort of play on the behalf of Boak, but yeah, I was saying it's 30-second gap, but that on the face value is 30-second gap. Yeah, 30-second gap in about 15 laps. It's gonna be hard to catch, but once he gets his tyres going again, this third set of tyres going, Hathaway is going to be like he's on rails. And Boak is constantly getting worse and worse on those tyres. He was able to defend more due to his experience as a driver than any ability with the car. But he cannot match the pace. He's only dropped a second, although granted that was Hathaway's outlap. We're going to see on Hathaway's first full lap now how much the pace changes, how much the gap changes between the two cars. But Boak's got to come in, and even with a safety car, he's going to have to hope for a long safety car and like a 3 or 2 lap run to the flag for him to be able to win this race without pitting again. He's going to have to pit again. But the converse thing is, if he's going to pit, he wants to pit soon because that gap is too small for him to maintain through a pit window. His car is set up, as we've seen so far, supposedly, to extract maximum pace in the first 5 or 6 laps or so. So he needs to get in soon so he can make use of that pace to catch back up to Mitch Hathaway. Otherwise, Hathaway has got this race.
Well, I thought he was coming in that particular lap, but he wasn't because he was very, very loose. And little icon there above your number 1 signifies usually that someone's coming in for a stop, and he opted not to come in that time. So he goes for another lap, but you can see already Mitchell Hathaway has started eating into what was a 30-second margin with the fact that Boak had not stopped. It's now down to 28.0. So it's coming down all this time. And the more I know that Mitchell Hathaway made a couple of mistakes on the way into the pit, and he also had to spend a bit of extra time to get around the stationary car of Brownie that was in the pit lane as well. But Boak's made just as many mistakes, and on top of that, is very, very loose at the moment, and not a very happy rear end.
No, that was a thing. When Hathaway caught up in parallel traffic, there it was Dwayne Davies and another lap car. I think it was Brownie he caught as well. Yeah, it was Brownie he caught as well. Right in the process as Dwayne was lapping Brownie, they were trying to lap the both of them, and they went 3 wide through turn 3 and into turn 4.
We're just watching it now.
There. Yeah.
My goodness. And Dwayne had the sense of mind to get out of it. Actually, they both had the sense of mind to get out of it, but that would have been a little bit hairy for Mitch Hathaway at that particular moment. And he's continuing to eat into this margin. Now down to 27.5 seconds. To wait for the second timing split. Now 27.1. Phil Boak continues to go another lap. He's working lap 44 now, so he's got 11 or 12 laps to go. Can he make it here from this? Has he played his cards right?
That's it depends on how much pace he's going to drop. He's going to constantly drop pace, but he might be at the point where, with a very rapidly receding fuel line as well, where he's actually gained like a slight reprieve, almost like if you get frostbite, you temporarily stop feeling the cold before you lose your finger. I think he's in that moment of his tyres where they are giving him a little grip because the car weighs a lot less. He's got a very small amount of his 120 starting litres on board the car. So he might have enough tyre grip left over the next 11 laps or 10 and a bit laps to slow or to arrest the pace that Mitch Hathaway is making up. He might just, and it's going to be a bloody close call, he might just be able to win this race. But
he's in. He's in. He couldn't do it. He could not do it. In actual fact, Matt Williams had brought out a local yellow at the end of the pit lane, did a similar thing to Mitch Hathaway. So Boak could not make it on fuel. So this will surrender the lead of the race to Mitchell Hathaway, and they'll actually be quite comfortable, I would imagine. And as we said before, he probably needed to come in a couple of laps ago, almost directly after Mitchell Hathaway made his stop, to capitalise on the couple of seconds that it cost him on the pit lane entry, because the margin is going to be substantial now.
It is, yeah. He's just been passed by him.
Yeah, there you go. And he's also got Matt Williams in front of him as well, but that's obviously a lapped car. But I think Hathaway's going to cruise from here, and a 19.4, his best lap that particular time around to Mitch Hathaway. It's I don't believe it's the... Actually, I'm going to look through the system here just to see if it is the quickest lap of the race. It's certainly gone very, very close to being the quickest lap of the race. No, it's not. It's the man in P3, Brennan Ross, actually, believe it or not, on 18.9. He's managed to turn out at some point. It was a very, very tidy lap. So, see, Brennan Ross has got some pace in that car, but it just happens to be very, very loose. He just needs to look after it a bit more. So, he's the man that sits up in P3. In actual fact, probably can challenge Phil Boak, I would imagine. Because Boak's has given, as we just watched the back end of him giving that wall of rub at turn number 8. And Boak with some lap traffic. There's Brennan Ross. So this battle for P2 and P3 could heat up toward the end of things here. The gap is coming down and coming down some more. Brennan Ross looks like he might have tuned some of the issues out of that car. Looks a lot straight up, looks a lot more in control than it has been earlier in the race. So maybe as you said, Ben, it might just be a case of a bit later on in the run, some of these drivers have tuned their car to come to them as the tyre load, as the tyre wear decreases and the fuel load comes off, I should say.
Exactly. As the way that the fuel comes down, it's helping the cars out. Yeah, Brennan Ross has shown the pace, but his car, I think, is still set up on a knife edge where if he's got it right, he can attract the pace. If he doesn't know, he's risking putting it in the fence. He's happy to take that gamble, and it's I suppose it kind of fits with the FCR motorsport ethos in a way. But he's able to take that gamble on running a car setup that is quite agile underneath him. That he reckons he can do it, but the gap's down under half a second, and Foley's just given the wall Boak's just given the wall another clap there. So we might see a change.
And he's gone deep. He's gone deep at turn 9 as well, and that puts Brennan Ross right up onto the back of him as well. So he's been catching him hand over fist for the last 2 laps. I'm not sure if Boak's just gone into like a conservation mode just to make it to the flag, but he's got the number 444 for company. And as we said before, with Mitch Hathaway on Phil Boak, now it's Brennan Ross on Boak, and he's got to just pick his moment where he's stronger and get the pass done. Lap 47 now, so not too much longer to go. It's a 55-lap race. Is he looking at turn 3? No, a bit too far back. So he might try and line him up out of turn 8 down to turn 9 if he can stay with him through the staircase here. And just ahead of them, you've actually got Matt Williams, Dwayne Davies battling over 5th and 6th. So they're not a factor at the moment in terms of traffic. There you go. Just see Dwayne Davies shoot through in front of shot. In actual fact, losing a little bit of touch with Matt Williams now. So this is where Brennan Ross needs to stay as close as possible, get a little bit of a draft. He just needs to stay nice and tight, not give the wall a rub. Boak's given the wall a rub. Brennan Ross didn't. Down the inside goes Brennan Ross. And that's a beautiful move. He can pull it, backs it in. A little bit of Morse code on the rear bumper from Phil Boak. But Brennan Ross up to P2. He's driven quite well from the back of the field. He was on the last 2 or 3 rows of the grid following that qualifying session, and he now finds himself second step of the podium provisionally. Oh, and he's in. He's in. What was all that about? So that's he made a mistake. Was he in, or did he make a mistake? What happened there?
No, he dived in, but he got on the brakes way too late and locked it up and slid straight on the apron. And by that point, he was so far gone that he couldn't recover and had to sneak around the edge of the concrete to continue again. So he's lost time, and he hasn't made his pit stop. But I was going to say I was going to make a point. I completely forgot what it was in all that. Oh yeah. I think that overtake is one of the few times I've seen someone bump someone's front bumper to make a pass. But
here we go. We're just looking at a replay from on high here, and he just way too hot. In actual fact, there was a local yellow there too for Ethan Howard, who was parked on the inside on the actual the pit lane, the curb that divides the pit lane from the racetrack. So that was rather strange from Brennan Ross. So I'm wondering, you shouldn't be able to fuel Brennan Ross, but he should be able to make it back around, but he's actually, in actual fact, he's awfully slow. Where's Phil Boak and all this? Yeah, Boak's cleared off. So Brennan Ross is probably just trying to nurse it in to get some fuel. So he couldn't make it on that particular stop. Now, he'll come out quite comfortably for P3, Brennan Ross, but it'll be a lonely P3 now. There's quite a substantial gap back to Cam Rutledge, who occupies P4. and then Matt Williams and Dwayne Davies are no threat either. So we'll see if he comes in this time around, if he manages to make it stick. And yes, he does. He's a bit more cautious this time around. It is a tricky pit lane entry. We've seen it not only in supercars, but we've also seen it in Formula 1, back when this was a Formula 1 circuit, where drivers had a lot of issue getting stopped and turned in properly for that particular pit lane entrance.
Exactly. If you're feeling like a need to be bold on pit entrance, there's not a lot. I mean, what would help in a way is if that wall was just a little longer and actually extended a bit further around the corner from the start-finish line, you could actually sort of ping your way around the corner. But I think that's been done intentionally. We just had Matt Williams around. He's just sacrificed position 6 to Dwayne Davies there. I was about to say they were one of the closest battles on track, but that's just basically put a full stop on that battle.
Yeah, you're certainly right if that is the case. So we're just watching the replays. They came up through the staircase here and see where he actually did it. He was under no real pressure. Too much curb. Too much inside curb at turn 7, and just got on the gas a little bit too early. Kept it out of the wall though, which was good. And in actual fact, Phil Boak, who was in P2, actually slipped through as well. So not too much damage to worry about Matt Williams. A little bit of hurt pride. He's down to P6. Still scoring some points. As we tick closer to 70 minutes gone in this race. We predicted we were going to get about 75 minutes, but the early safety car probably puts up to about 80, so looking on track for that. Some blue flags here as Cam Rutledge is being given the hurry up by Mitch Hathaway out of turn 7, and he probably needs to, you'll probably let him go, I dare say, down into the hairpin. Mitchell's actually got quite a decent margin on Phil Boak at the moment, so it's not too bad, but Rutledge will do the sensible thing here, and yeah, just goes to the inside and lets him go by on the racing line. So good driving. Probably could have done it a little bit earlier, but gets it done in the sensible passing zone. He's actually driven quite well, Cam Rutledge. He qualified well. He's up 2 spots, mainly by attrition, but a good solid haul of points. I think he's another driver also running the ASC and the Super 2 in each particular week that they run. So he's kept his nose clean, hasn't had any real troubles. The car's quite straight. It looks in good shape. He's done quite well for himself.
He has. He is one of the cars running both. I believe, I will correct myself later on this, probably like at 3 o'clock in the morning, but I believe he is running a VF in the ASC as well, with the same livery and potentially the same number. But yeah, the extra practice he got through what we had of a first race and the second race about a week ago has helped him. And yet, 4th is, considering the mess that's happened everywhere around him, 4th, and to actually make up a couple of spots on where he qualified, has been a good result. It hasn't been a highly crash-based traditional race. It's just been cars making little errors here and there, but he's managed to keep his car clean. One of the few guys to avoid connecting a wall, which I think was a similar case for him in the ASC race as well, was one of the few guys that avoided just running into things. So, if nothing else, he's a very consistent driver, very mature driver, not making any overly aggressive moves, not licking the stamp or anything. He is it's sort of the driver's driver, very, very gentleman driver, and it's proved to work out well for him to be sitting in 4th, and yeah, that's a great debut run for him in the Super 2 Championship.
That is, and aside from Mitchell Hathaway, who was currently Pro-Am, but we suspect is about to have his ranking changed to Pro at the end of tonight's proceedings if he finishes where he is, that would put Cam Rutledge as the leading Pro-Am runner in P4, and a nice solid haul of points towards his Super 2 Championship. But looking through the grid or the order as it stands, with 3.5 laps to go, Mitchell Hathaway comfortably out in front. Phil Boak is some 15.5 seconds off the pace, under no direct threat, so he can afford to coast home from here. Brennan Ross P3, and has maintained P3, having stopped in the last couple of laps. Cam Rutledge is comfortably in P4. Dwayne Davies only 10 seconds behind, so a mistake like that from Rutledge, going deep at turn number 9, and running off the track a couple more times to put Dwayne Davies back onto his tail. Matt Williams is down in P6, having surrendered P5 to DD after taking too much curb at turn 7. Cracker now in P7. It's been going along quite nicely. A couple of minor mistakes. Steve Burko in the Top Gear Racing Falcon is up into P8. Aussie, who's running as one of the guest liveries, has managed to stay on the track. A couple of dints on that car in P9. And Billy running out of P10. Brownie, the other of the Cracker Racing Team cars, is in P11. Termo's still managing to get going, although he's had a moment there off of turn number 3 and does a good job to get out of the way of Dwayne Davies. And Ethan Howard, the last of the classified runners, he's 13th. And we've lost Grant English, Lee Sanford, Gary Neville, Will Devonish, Sid, JP Courier and Brenton Foley from this race.
Yeah, I just want to take a little moment to just talk about him and the advantages of continuing to run. He is currently 9 laps down and possibly might end up 10 laps down by this race, but I believe he will still classify within the 75% or whatever it is needed to finish. Yeah, he's shown the virtue. He's doing a good job as a rookie. He's kept himself out of the way of the leaders each time they come through. Possibly strategized a few pit stops to make advantage of getting out of the way of battle packs. He hasn't necessarily put down the fastest times, even first out of the rookies, but he's kept the car clean and he's got plenty of experience racing around a pack. And yeah, he might we might end up having a bit of a tussle if all this experience and speed transfers for him into the next round. So great job by my teammate Ethan, and yeah, he's shown the virtue of doing a bit of a Bradbury and just keep trucking.
Certainly is. Well, speaking of speed transfer, it's Mitchell Hathaway showing a great transportation of speed here, with just working his penultimate lap on the way down to turn 8 at the moment. The only accolade that he hasn't got is the fastest lap, which is still held by Brennan Ross. Brennan Ross lowered it last time around with a 1 minute 18.752, and now lowers it again to an 18.749. So he's really having some fun, Brennan Ross, showing the late turner speed. Imagine what he could have done if he was up toward the pointy end of the field. He might have been a threat for Mitchell Hathaway toward the back end of this race. But one more lap to go after he negotiates the final corner now. Been a stunning drive by this man. Started rear of grid, didn't get a solid qualifying run in. In actual fact, he didn't put a time on the board at all. So started absolutely stone cold, motherless last. And Ben, we said it doesn't happen all that often, but it can happen. And he looks set to go from the rear to the front and win it. Exactly.
There's an achievement tied into this game for doing this with AI. With all respect, I think doing this with actual competitive drivers is a lot harder. But he's managed to do it. He had a great start leading up to the first safety car, and he just kept plucking through cars, and he managed to stage his pit stops and have the car set up in a way that overall he didn't lose out in pit stops. He lost time, but then he gained a lot more time because of it. By the time he was back on the pit stop, he was further up the field than he was last when he pitted, which is the optimal way to work a pit stop out and together with lap time. And he's broken out a 22-second lead now on Phil Boak, and that's from last to first. That's comprehensively winning it as well. So he's going to round the last corner now, but race 1 of the Super2 Championship goes to Mitch Hathaway with probably one of the best drives we've seen so far, might see so far this season.
Absolutely right. And with it goes 300 points into his championship kitty for the Pro Championship. What a stunning drive on debut in the AMS Oz Super 2 Series. Not only just in the Super 2 Series, but in AMS Oz in general. A wonderful, wonderful drive from the rear of the grid to the front. So he takes P1. Phil Boak will grab second place, and to add to his run of accolades and podium finishes, Brennan Ross will come across in P3. So Brennan Ross making a habit of some of these podiums with everything he's done in Rookie Cup, in GT, and now in the Super 2 series. Great job from him. Cam Rutledge is first man a lap down, P4. Dwayne Davies 5th. Ricky Slick, or Matt Williams as they call him, is P6. Cracker across in 7th. Steve Burko 8th. Billy 9th. Aussies rounds out your top 10. And Brownie and Termo and I think Ethan Howard, actually Termo and Ethan Howard's crossing the line now. And Brownie will be the last one to round the final corner with a bit of bonnet damage to boot. But we got 13 of our 20 starters to the flag at the end of it in varying states of finishing, whether it be laps down or on the lead lap. Good job all round. Didn't have the amount of safety cars we probably expected. We got one at the very beginning, but apart from that, everyone seemed to be relatively well behaved. There was no real major collisions or accidents.
Yeah, exactly. I was hyping up the potential of safety cars, especially based on the last race at Adelaide that I've been a part of. But yeah, we had one off the start for a stalled car, and that was it. We had quite a lot of local yellows and quite a lot of blue flag work happening as well from the officials, but no safety cars. So yeah, we haven't won a safety car, which is a good thing. We won't need to be throwing that thing in the workshop for a service after this race. But yeah, that was some great racing, some mature racing from some of the guys, and some of the rookies did a great job of being lap traffic as well. There wasn't there was some little incidents of balking and awkwardness, but it wasn't a widespread issue. And yes, very solid start to the season, and yeah, it was great to not in the safety car. We better keep running green flag laps to give people the chance to learn the best they can about these cars.
Absolutely right. Has been a great opening to the Super 2 season, and we're just waiting for a few of the drivers to filter in now. There's a couple of drivers in here, that one that I recognise and one that I don't recognise. We're just waiting to get a couple of our podium sitters through. Hopefully they'll be through. So they're all starting to make their way out of their cars and up to the garages. But I'd like to see if we can get our third place man first, but he's not here just yet. And our first place man is not here just yet either, but our second place man is. I'd like to start in some sort of order if we can actually do it, but I think we might, we'll go to Phil Boak. So he's in here at the moment. So Phil, just talk us through your race a little bit. And you didn't have the pace to live with Mitch Hathaway toward the back end of that race, but you've come home for a solid second, and you were in the thick of it with the battle with your own teammate very, very early on. And how'd you find all that?
That was good fun. I think me and Brenton were just trying to work out who was quicker. And then so I was a little bit quick for a bit, but then my tyres would drop off really quickly. So he got back past and he got away a bit, and then he disconnected, which is just a bummer. But yeah, then I was sort of, after the pit stop, I was sort of catching Will a little, catching, and then same thing for him, I'm assuming. He disconnected. And then Mitch come from nowhere. I wasn't really looking at who was behind me. I was more just trying to chase the front guys. Yeah, then towards the end, the tyres just went off, and I must have had some damage because I just couldn't get it through turn 8. In the end, I was back to 5th, just trying to feather it through, so it must have had some sort of damage, I'm not sure, but either way, I didn't really have the pace of Mitch anyway. He was too quick.
Well, you were flirting with that outside turn 8 wall on more than several occasions. I think you gave it a rub probably just about every second lap. Intentional, or just a part of the whole in catching a little bit too extra curb? I mean, how did you manage to handle that? Because it certainly looked like every single time we turned to have a look at you, you were getting closer and closer and getting a little bit more heavier contact sometimes, and we were kind of a bit worried for you for a little while.
Yeah, trying to find the limit. I mean, every time I hit it, I'd straighten the wall, so at least I hit sort of flat. So I was lucky I didn't get worse damage. But just trying to find the limit, and then towards the end it was just horrible. So I was just trying to find how quick I could go, but I felt like no matter what I did, I'd touch it. So it was pretty well every lap. Towards the end there, it was pretty much every lap I touched. Didn't matter what I did.
Well,
So
you've
lucky
come.
boy.
Sorry, you've come home with a nice haul of points toward your championship. Still a long way to go, but you came home. You kept you kept yourself on the track, and that's the most important thing. So, looking forward to what you can do for the rest of the season.
Yep, thanks, man.
Well, we're still missing. I'm looking for Brendan Ross, but I haven't seen him just yet. Actually, in fact, here he is. I've actually got him. He's actually changed his name in this this Discord channel, so now I know what I'm looking for. Thank you, Choir Boy. Rossi, you're making a habit of occupying these podiums. You've done quite well in a lot of the other series you've run in. You had a podium to start out with in GT3 over at Barcelona a couple of weeks ago, and you're backing it up with another podium here. So you seem to be on the money, but your car was a right handful for quite a lot of the time that we'd seen you going around.
I don't know about a right handful.
It looked like a right handful. It looked like you were having a lot of trouble for a while.
I don't know. You must have been just seeing the odd laps, but the car was pretty much pristine for me. I just set it up badly with a crappy qualifying. So, but it's probably the most enjoyable race I've raced, despite how frustrating it was passing some cars.
Well, you started toward the very back of the grid, as you said. You had a poor qualifying. Quite a lot of people were out of position, and you were especially one of them. What was it like fighting it up through the field for the entire race? Because there were certainly some guys that could do it, and some guys that were able to do it quite quickly, and you slowly picked them off, and you got the job done. But did you have to sort of pick where your passing particular zone was, or did you just take your opportunities as they came?
Bit of both. It's sort of, we played it out good for the safety car where both me and Dwayne, we come in as the safety car came in, so we sort of broke away from the field there and made up time by just putting fast laps instead. Got a whole bunch of drivers, and then by the time we caught them, they were all spread out, so it was probably only one or two that probably fought hard enough for the position where it made it a little difficult, where others probably pulled off to the side and just allowed us through, which was pretty handy. But yeah, just taking the opportunity as it comes.
Well, you certainly did take your opportunities. You've got a nice haul of points as well for your Super 2 championship, and looking forward to seeing what you can do next week when we hit the streets of Albert Park. Job well done.
Thank you.
Well, we now turn to our race winner, and this is probably one of the very first times I think we've actually witnessed this in AMS Oz, not only on debut, but as you called it, Ben, Mitch Hathaway, you've gone from the back to the front. You've done the unthinkable, and a rare feat, starting dead last and ending up at the top step of the podium. Mate, how'd you do it? You were bloody quick, and we're all scratching our heads here, but you put on a real show.
Yeah, thanks very much. Actually, I was pretty nervous. I screwed up my qualifying early, and I thought, oh gosh, how am I going to do this? Just kind of went with the flow, really. Just tried to put in as quick as laps I could. Just keep the car nice and stable, and yeah, managed to. I looked up and saw I was picking off everyone that must have pit early and something. But I just kept pushing, tried to pit as late as I can. And then saw myself up in the top 5, so I just kept pushing it, really. Stoked to come out with first.
Yeah, stoked to come out with first, I'd imagine, and on debut as well. It certainly gives you a good boost in the championship. It gives you 300 points, and you're at the top step of the podium now. I know you entered as a Pro-Am, but I dare say you'll probably end up with a Pro ranking by the end of tonight once everything is all settled down. We noticed that, as you said, you did start dead last and made a bit of a right hash of your qualifying. Did you actually manage to get a good view of what happened at the start? Because it looks like JP managed to either stall on the grid or couldn't get going for some reason. Did you have to take any avoiding action there? Because it looked like you gained a couple of car spots before the yellow flag got thrown. So I mean, you'd already put down, I think, 2 or 3, or gained 2 or 3 positions before the yellow flag came out for the full course yellow.
Yeah, I saw a car was stopped. I didn't know quite what was happening. Tried to just get in inside line as quick as I can, get out of trouble. Then I was kind of caught out by the yellows. I'm kind of used to just racing the AIs, so not much to do with the flag thing. So I kind of thought I'd kind of cheated a little bit and just let a couple of cars go in front of me. And I was a bit like, hang on, what's happening? realised we're under full course safety car. So I got caught out a little bit, and I thought I was in the wrong for a second, but I'm just happy to stay out of trouble in those kinds of instances on the first lap, starting from the back of the row. So.
Well, your car was pristine at the end of it, and as I said, you certainly put on a show, and on debut, you can't ask for a better start. Congratulations on your very first win and your very first race in AMSOs, mate. Well done.
Thank you very much. Thanks to everyone who raced tonight. It was awesome fun.
Well, Ben, that's the top three. What do you take away from tonight? I mean, we started with 20. We ended up with 13 at the end of the night. But the 13 that are on the road are the 13 that score points, and at a demanding circuit like Adelaide, anytime you walk away with points is a good night.
We did. We had a couple of rookies that did actually make it to the end, which is a good start and give them plenty of experience in the car. And then we had a great battle for the lead there. We had some great strategy play out, and it kept the action through the field. There were little battles that established their way throughout the race, and it wasn't a case of we were stuck watching the front the entire time. There were battles that you could look at elsewhere in the pack, which means we actually got some racing going. It's not we're not playing game of follow the leader here. So that was a great debut. Hopefully, at the next round at Adelaide, with potentially with a bit more runoff and a bit more area to make mistakes, we see a few more cars make it to the finish. But that was a pretty solid starting debut round for the Super 2 Championship.
It certainly was, and the caption for the stream before we started tonight was it was either going to be commiserations for the guys that ended up in the Carnage, or it was going to be celebrations for the guys that ended up with commitment, and we certainly saw the both extremes tonight with the guys that were up the front and finished the race, and the guys that found trouble and unfortunately dropped out of the race. Well, that is the first race of the 15-round Super 2 series for AMS Oz for 2019. The next stop is next Thursday night, the 21st of March. We'll be doing some sprint racing around the Albert Park Grand Prix circuit. So in real life, the supercars are there this weekend, so we'll be there next weekend for a pair of 60k sprint races, so you can join us then. But in between now and then, we've also got the 2-hour of Le Mans GT 3 series coming up this Sunday night, and plenty of guys rubbing their hands together, looking forward to that. But until then, as we always say, please drive safely, and we will see you next time. Bye for now.